council chambers as well as virtually using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on the Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via the Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Pastor Chris Young from Summit Church will be giving the invocation this evening, and Mayor Joyner will begin the meeting immediately after the invocation. Pastor.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for including members of the faith community in events like this. We appreciate it. I took a man out to lunch recently who helped me with some yard work that was too much for me to do by myself. And he asked a question a little bit reluctantly, how the members of church leadership in Lincoln got along with each other. And normally I don't like questions that I think I might have to lie. And so I was really happy actually to be able to say that we have a community, pardon me, of faith leaders who, at least in my 19 years of being here, care about each other, work with each other, do what's best for our community, even if that means setting aside some of our preferences and maybe what's best for us in a moment. And it reminded me of a simple truth that people are watching leaders. And I don't think that's just necessarily true of faith leaders, but organizational leaders and community leaders, civic leaders, maybe even just a leader, somebody who speaks more loudly or more eloquently than others do. And it helped me to recognize my role in this community, pardon me, in doing better at making sure that I'm more connected in being a better leader in this community. So thank you again for letting us be here. We do thank you, God, for a city that is not facing what Lahaina is facing right now. We have our challenges and we've had our difficulties in the many decades that we've been a city, but they're facing genuine hardship, 114 dead and over 850 still missing. So we do pray for them, that in the midst of all the different difficulties that are going across this nation, and even in meetings like this here, that we recognize what's truly important, that we have people in our lives that they've lost, children, grandchildren, siblings, friends, grandparents. They'll never see them again. And they're facing difficulties that they wish they could exchange for the ones that we might address here tonight. So I pray that whatever gets discussed and whatever needs are brought before this body of people, that we keep in mind that there are greater challenges that we might have to face one day, and how well we do in moments like this will prepare us for how well we can do in bigger moments that really require us to come together as a community. Thank you for each of our leaders. Thank you for each of our residents. Thank you for our teachers, our community people, all those who contribute to making this the amazing city that it is. We give you thanks for it all in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Young. What you refocus my awareness on is that we had some of our fellow citizens that were in Lahaina that day. We thankfully survived and are home safely. But that disaster came very close to home as well. They are all in our prayers and in our thoughts, without question. So with that, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Gwen, roll call, please.
That's Councilmember Andriotta,
I'm here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen, and Mayor Joyner.
We move on to item 3, report from closed session. Christine, we did have a closed session in between meetings. I don't know that we need to report out on that, but if you'd like to,
Correct. There is no reportable action.
thank you. Paul Voss, I saw you walk in somewhere. Would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Paul. Item 5, agenda modifications. Does staff have any modifications to the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any council members have a modification? Being none, we'll move on to presentations. Item 6A, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Regional Transportation Plan, and unmet transit needs update. Corey?
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. It's great to be here. My name is Corey Peterson. I'm a senior planner with the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. We just wanted to come and give you guys a quick update and some of the stuff that PCTPA is working on in the planning realm. We're going to start with, oops, is there a PowerPoint up? Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, there we go. So we're going to start kind of at a high level, talk about the regional transportation plan and what we've been doing with that. It's a long range plan that we've been working on for about a year and a half now, and part of a 2 to 3 year process. We're going to talk about the unmet transit needs process and then go into kind of more in the details of our transit planning with this comprehensive operational analysis and short range transit plan. And then we'll open it up to any questions from the council. So first, let me start kind of with the RTP update. So we actually came to the Lincoln City Council last fall with an update on the regional transportation plan. We'd kind of just gotten started with our update and working on starting with community engagement and looking at our goals and policies. But I just did want to just give a quick kind of an overview of what the RTP is. This is a long-range planning document that's kind of PCTPA's bread and butter. It gives us a chance to bring together every 5 years stakeholders from across the county to talk about the vision for our transportation system in Placer County. We coordinate together with SACOG and their kind of their RTP, their blueprint update process. The two plans are really interconnected, so we work closely with their staff to do our RTP update as well as their metropolitan transportation plan. The plan is informed by public outreach. We do a robust slate of public outreach, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes, and as well as the direction of our PCTPA board, which Mayor Joyner sits on. So just to kind of give an overview of the differences between our plan and what that of SACOG. So they're both long-range plans. They're both essentially policy and project statements about how we want our transportation system to grow and to change and evolve, and what projects we need to accomplish to make that happen. They're both financially constrained plans. So all the projects that go in there have to meet, be within what we reasonably expect to receive in revenue over the next, 25 years. But there's a few differences. SACOG focuses on the greater Sacramento region, so they cover all 6 counties in that region. They also incorporate other federal requirements like air quality analysis and land use planning that we do not in the PCTPA RTP. So since we were last here back in, I believe it was November of last year, we've been doing a lot of work on the regional transportation plan. So we held a first round of outreach last fall. We were at the Taste of Lincoln Showcase and talked to community members about what types of transportation improvements they'd like to see. We also did an online survey that got over 1,000 responses across the county and kind of got an idea of what types of transportation projects people are interested in implementing. We also presented a draft policy element to the PCTPA board last spring, or actually last June, I should say. And then we also recently began work on what we're calling kind of an equity planning study. We just began that work last month, and we'll be working on that over the course of the fall. We're going to be doing a second round of community engagement. We're going to be kind of focusing on what projects the community would like to prioritize. So the first round that we did last fall, we asked about kind of broad priorities. Would you like to see more, roads or more transit or more bike lanes? This is going to be a more specific questions about now that we've kind of drilled down, okay, what projects do you actually want to prioritize over one another? So we're going to be doing another online survey. We'll be at Taste of Lincoln again on September 23rd. We'll be doing a bunch of virtual and in-person outreach events across the county. The survey will be available in early September. I encourage everyone in the public to go to bctpa.net/RTP 2050 and give us your input. As far as the schedule goes, so we're kind of somewhere right here in the middle, getting towards the end of 2023. Next year, I'll be working on a preferred project list where we'll be actually kind of listing out all the projects that will be going in the RTP and that we want to implement, updating the action element and looking at the financial constraints of the plan, and then hoping to work towards adoption at the end of 2025. And this is consistent with SACOG's blueprint update schedule as well. So what we'll be doing right now, we'll be doing the second round of outreach here until October. We'll be doing working with SACOG on draft financial forecasts and then looking at the preferred project list in the spring. With that, I'd like to turn over to Mike Costa. He's going to talk about the unmet transit needs.
Thank you, Corey, and good evening, Mayor Joyner, members of the City Council. Corey talked about a high-level project that we're working on regarding all transportation needs. I'm going to dive into some of our local transit projects that would be impacting the City of Lincoln, starting with our unmet transit needs process, which is something that we actually do every year as an agency for one of the funding sources that we administer that the City of Lincoln receives, called local transportation funds, which require us to go through this unmet transit needs process every year. The unmet transit needs process is an administrative process that we have to do to determine if there are any unmet transit needs that then can be determined to be reasonable to meet by our PCTPA elected board. Once those needs are identified, we do analyze those needs with our transit operators and our partners here at the City of Lincoln, as well as our other jurisdictions, to determine if there are any unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet, which we then address in the next fiscal year before we distribute some of that funding over to our jurisdictions to use for other purposes such as streets and roads. The schedule before you shows our unmet transit needs process, which should be concluding in February of next year. We do have some outreach associated with the unmet transit needs process, starting with a survey available September 5th. So anyone that's interested or wanting to provide input on public transit, please visit our unmet transit needs survey, which will be available on our website. You can provide us comments on the website. You can email me with my contact information there, and you can also submit any forms directly to our offices. The survey will be available through October 31st. Our comprehensive operational analysis and short-range transit plan is something that's tied directly again to this idea of analyzing our transit needs here in South Placer County, and this also applies to the City of Lincoln. What we're going to be doing over the next course of a year and a half is working with our transit providers, working with our community partners here in Lincoln and other jurisdictions in South Placer County to look at what does the future of transit mean for our communities and how can we better integrate and coordinate our existing services that are provided in South Placer County. Those services include Placer County Transit, which directly serves the City of Lincoln, Roseville Transit, and Auburn Transit. So we're going to be looking at that collectively and how can we improve our services and programs across our jurisdictional lines to better serve the needs of our community. And we're going to be doing a lot of outreach associated with that project in the community concurrent with our unmet transit needs process so that we can kind of marry the two processes together and hopefully avoid a little bit of confusion with having multiple processes happening at once. Our short-range transit plan that's going to be coming out of this comprehensive operational analysis will be looking at the next 5 to 10 years of what does public transit look like in the South Placer County region. So it's very important that we hear from the community, that we receive the input from citizens of Lincoln and also the surrounding South Placer region so that we can again develop a short-range transit plan that looks at an integrated and coordinated network over the next 5 to 10 years. That outreach engagement process, again, we're going to do our best to combine it with as many of our existing planning efforts as possible. We have a lot going on at PCTPA. So in terms of our marketing, you'll see us out in the community most likely asking for input, not just on the RTP, but if we have special projects such as this, we'll be asking citizens to provide input on those processes and projects as well, such as the transit needs for the region. Our timeline and schedule for the COA and short range transit plan, as I mentioned, we started the project in July. We'll be finishing the project hopefully in spring of 2025 with a lot of outreach in between and a lot of analysis and looking at existing conditions and what the future looks like for public transit in the next 5 to 10 years. With that, I'm happy to conclude my presentation and answer any questions that the council or public may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Before I came on the council and have been involved, as a citizen, I often wondered what kind of an impact would my thoughts be to someone like you that has a job to do. So when you hold these public outreach things, how much of that does that really impact what you decide?
Well, I think a lot of the processes that we work with, that's a very great question. We do work with the local jurisdictions like the city of Lincoln to pull as many of our projects in our regional transportation plan and our transit planning efforts already from the work that your community has done at the local level. So we try to utilize and actually recognize all the hard work that your community staff and your community residents have already provided input into your local processes, especially at this city council level. From there, we usually take those ideas and we put them out in the community, out in the county to evaluate and compare for our regional needs. Because as Corey mentioned, we have a fiscal constraint for our plan. So we do have to look at how do we prioritize our region's community projects, both in transportation and transit realms. And so we want to kind of hear from residents if we're comparing, say, roadway projects versus transit projects versus bikeway projects, where do our community as a whole or our region as a whole kind of gravitate towards in terms of prioritization? And that does help us with developing both a constrained financial project list and an unconstrained list to say if we get funding, we can go into these areas as well. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? No? Mike, you always do a great job at anticipating my questions, so I had to put the pad back down and not write them down. A couple of things, just really for clarification for anybody who might be listening. On-Met transit needs are difficult to be able to address quite often. I'll give you an example. One of the most frequent that comes up is bus service to Sheridan. There are folks up there who, one lady in particular, who sometimes walks to Lincoln to do her grocery shopping. But the reality is it's simply not fiscally practical to provide bus service to Sheridan. It might make far more sense to buy this one individual an Uber card for the month. So we're looking at new and creative ways of addressing the needs. But I think most important, and you brought it up, we're beginning to look across our borders and across agencies because, you know, somebody wanting to go to the hospital in Roseville, our buses may not take them into Roseville without them having to get off the bus, say at the Galleria, get on another bus and go over to the hospital. And so how can we interconnect those services and make that a bit easier on the riders? And then Corey, and I guess I'm really kind of doing a monologue here. Sorry about that. With respect to SACOG and PCTPA, we're not acting independently as PCTPA puts together all of its plans. Those slide into the bigger plan that SACOG is putting together for the region. So they're not independent. We have a great deal of influence there on what happens. But again, as we begin to move forward into a 6-county competitive funding round, that's going to get more and more difficult for us to compete for those dollars with the other 5 counties, you know, with Sacramento and all the political power that they have down there. But we're going to give it our best shot. So, any members of the public have questions or comments on the presentation? Mr. Garabedian?
Thank you. Mike Garabedian, Placer County tomorrow. Want to point out that this plan is due in 2025. I believe that's the completion date for this really critical 5-year effort, and urge everybody to work on this. I want to point out that right now, the same organization, PCTPA, is working on a sales tax increase proposal for 2024, which would be on the ballot before this. And this is a sales tax proposal with the same idea that was put on the ballot, I think it was back in 2016, that the public did not pass, even though $1 million was raised to support it. It may be important to keep this item in mind. I don't know if the gentleman would want to explain what the relationship between that potential tax increase is and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. But since that time, another important development is that after that was defeated, the county did get legislation passed in the state legislature to allow a vote in less than the full county. I think it was in the cities and not the full county. And I'm not sure if their proposal, what they're considering, but I know they've been surveying for a couple of years, surveying the public. And the first year or two, a survey didn't show that the public would want to pass it. But now I think they have people out doing outreach, trying to convince the public that it's in the way coming along. So I just wanted to put this, what may be on the ballot in 2024 in the context of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garabedian. Appreciate it. Mike, I don't think there's anything there that you need to address. No decision has been made on whether that ballot measure will or will not be on the ballot for 2024. As Mr. Garabedian said, there's polling being done now. And obviously what that would do, it's probably a 1 cent sales tax, 1 cent, half cent. Remind me, half cent sales tax that would be paid within the city of Roseville, within the city of Rockland, within the city of Lincoln. The attractive thing about that package is that pulls in the Galleria, the Auto Mall. So a lot of folks from outside of our communities will be coming in and contributing to those. And those dollars would go directly to the types of projects we've talked about here today and would have to stay within the district. The state could not put their hands on those dollars. And we'd be able to leverage those dollars in that competitive funding round that I talked about with Sacramento and other communities. So keep an eye out for that. It may be on 24. It may wait till 26. We'll see what the polling says. Anyone else wish to comment on this item?
Mayor, we do have a hand raised on Zoom.
Okay, I'll come to the Zoom in a moment. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. Paul Vose. I was just curious, it's not even 2 cents, my 2 cents, it's a half a cent, but could you break down where the funding comes from as far as state, county, local that we raise through our taxes? Could you explain that?
Maybe a quick overview, Mike. SB1's the biggest one.
Sure. So a lot of our funding does come from, at least in this region, from the state of California through sales tax generated both from gas and local sales tax generated from purchases here in Placer County. There are a variety of different funding sources at the state level. We do also receive federal funding through the federal U.S. Department of Transportation, which is Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. Those funds are also generated based on some measure of fuel tax and even in some cases, some local taxes too, that we have from developers that fund some of our projects. So those are kind of a high level overview. There's a lot of different programs out there that we pull from, but if there's a wish from the council, we can provide a list, but that is kind of the high level overview is federal, state and local funds.
And I can get together with Paul on that. There's about $3 billion worth of infrastructure needs for our region. Developers are going to pay $2 billion of that. That is the maximum that they can be taxed for that. And so this measure is attempting to find a revenue source for that last $1 billion. And in many cases, state and federal, we can leverage that to get half of those funds from either the state or the federal government or a mixture of those two. So it's the state is not going to come in and widen Highway 65. They're just not. The governor has made it very, very clear he's not interested in any capacity adding projects. So we've got to find solutions that are local to get it done. And the federal government, I think, is more willing to work with us, but their focus is going to be the interstate system. So. What's that? Someone on Zoom? Yep. Go ahead.
MB, please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Council. Melanie Borchard here. Paul, you kind of mentioned this, but my question is if there is a ballot passed to raise tax here, if that measure passes in order to go toward the funding of widening of 65, after such a tax raise passes the ballot, are we then able to secure funding from state and or federal in addition to the tax?
We're able to compete for that funding with a matching fund. We are, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are 25 counties in California that are self-help counties, meaning they have a revenue measure of their own. Placer County is the largest in the state that does not have one.
Yes, and to kind of reiterate again, one of the biggest things with a local measure is the ability to leverage both at the state level and the federal level. And nowadays, a lot of the funding programs that we have to compete for require up to 50% local match, which we just can't provide with our current revenues. And so 50%, in the past, it was maybe 10% or even 20%. Now it's closer to 50% that we have to match in order to just go after that funding at the federal and state level.
Thank you, gentlemen. I guess my last comment will be, as the public is involved in these conversations moving forward with the transportation, I think breaking down and providing the information about how the funding is acquired and how it works with transportation and how the sales tax increase would be very important to include in presentations and make that very public information.
And that's absolutely what they do. They've got a full expenditure plan all laid out exactly where those dollars would go.
Yeah, keepplacermoving.org or .com, I believe, is the website to go for with our expenditure plan projects listed out, as well as any information we have about education efforts of our transportation needs in Placer County.
Mike, Corey, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Hold my place here. We move on to public comment tonight. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items not on our agenda for tonight. The council, because items are not agendized, the council is unable to discuss at any length or comment on those items. But if it's a short question that staff can answer, I can direct them to do so. I have one card at the moment. Paul?
Paul Vose, I just have one request, I guess, that be added to an agenda at some point. If we can get some feedback on the deterioration of the roads that have recently been worked on within the city of Lincoln. It just seems like they're completely falling apart and shredding right away.
Yeah.
So if we could, I don't know, Paul, maybe I should, Sean, I'm sorry, maybe I should have emailed you beforehand and asked you some information, but if at some point in the future, you might be able to do something that would be appreciated.
I think we can have something on for the next meeting.
And I think that'd be a very good idea. We've all had the same observation, right? In each of our neighborhoods and city parking lots everywhere else. So don't know what the solutions are, but Sean will be digging into it. Anyone else wishing to speak on public comment? No one? Yes, sir. You could come to the podium, please, so the folks at home can hear you and see you.
My name is Doug Bungert. I reside at 367 Miracle Lane. Good evening. I filled out an agenda form, a pink form, but this is sort of in between topic. I just wanted to comment on the manner in which many of us were given notice of this hearing regarding agenda agenda item 8B, ordinance 1064B, the hearing regarding the hike in the utility rates. We received a letter yesterday at 4 p.m. Regarding this meeting. The letter had no time listed on it, no location listed on it for the hearing. I make these comments out of only a gesture of constructive criticism. I enjoy living here in the city and I respect every single one of you. The letter was unsigned and undated. The location of, well, I've already said that. Basically, we were given 14 hours notice for this, for this hearing on this topic. To boot, I don't think the letter gives a very good impression to citizens. It was extremely curt, actually offensive, and I have a copy of it right here. Almost combative. I think this wonderful city of Lincoln can do a lot better and leave a better impression to its citizens in the future. Just a little cleanup on letters. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Folks, I'm going to ask a favor. There may be folks in the audience who, not necessarily on this topic, but on another topic, may disagree with the position. And so applause or negative responses could intimidate them into not being willing to speak. So I will ask you to hold any reactions to that type of thing. I think and I'm going to let Christine respond to this, but what I do want to say about that is I think that there's a misunderstanding of what that was. That was not a letter informing people of this meeting. That was a notification of a change in law that had recently happened, and our legal department needed to get that information out to the public. And ancillary to that was a little bit of information about this meeting, which is actually the second meeting held on the rate increases. The last one, the public hearing, was held at our last meeting 2 weeks ago. That's where the votes were counted as well. The protest votes were counted. So the letter, we're calling it a letter, it was really meant to be a notification, was simply about that legal nuance. And I can understand the response to it. Christine?
Thank you, Mayor. That was a very good description of what happened. So for the public's information, what happened was after we had our public hearing, which was 2 weeks ago, that public hearing was scheduled pursuant to a 45-day notice that went out to all of the ratepayers 45 days in advance of that hearing date, as required by Proposition 218. In addition, in the months leading up to that hearing, there were at least 5 public workshops where the subject of the rate increases on all 3 utilities were discussed and questions were taken. And what happened was after that public hearing 2 weeks ago, we received an email. Nita Racker, our finance director, received an email advising us that in this resident's view, the city had not complied with Government Code Section 53759, which is a relatively new statute. When we reached out to our rate consultant who had prepared our notice, we discovered that in fact, correctly, this resident advised that we did not provide a sentence in that notification that advised that the statute of limitations for a resident who wishes to file a lawsuit based on the rate adoption has 120 days following the adoption of the rates. Tonight is the adoption of the rates. And so the notification that went out was simply to advise members of the public pursuant to this statute that they have 120 days from tonight to file a lawsuit if they so choose to dispute the rates. I received several emails and telephone calls from members of the public claiming that they've had their due process rights violated, any number of complaints. I want to reiterate that the date from which the statute of limitations runs is today, if in fact the council approves the ordinance, because to date is the final date of adoption. And so the statute of limitations would run from today. So yes, I will concede there was a technical violation. Again, this is a new law and apparently our consultant was not on their radar. We are going to be in communication with them and make sure that other cities in our state don't suffer from the same omission. But in the end, it's legal's opinion that there has been no violation of due process because if adopted tonight, the residents and ratepayers still have their 120-day statute of limitations to redress the courts if they feel there are grounds to do so.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. Anyone else wishing to comment on an item not on our agenda tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Margaret Rebus. I just wanted to say, I got the letter and because I have been, I understand the need for rate increases, but I have had some negative statements. And when I received this, my name is on it, my address, and it's a cease and desist after 120 days after the date. You know, it says that you cannot have any proceeding to attack, review, set aside, void, validate, annul an ordinance, resolution or motion adopting a fee or charge for the blah, blah, blah. And I felt like it was telling me, and I don't think I'm alone, but it felt like it was a personal attack saying, listen, if you've got a complaint, you better just buckle up. You're not gonna, you better not say anything else. And so a suggestion I would make is maybe send out an email, send out, maybe a notice of some sort with an apology, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that felt like I was being told to just be quiet.
It sounds like we could have handled it better.
Yeah, it sounds like a cease and desist if you have a disagreement. So
Christine-
just a suggestion.
No, and I appreciate that very much. Christine, I don't know, is that language
It is a direct
set
cut
out
and
by the
paste.
state?
It's a direct cut and paste from the statute.
That's the challenge. That's the state's language, not ours, but
An intro.
got it. Lessons well learned. Thank you. Anyone else on an item not on our agenda tonight? Anyone online?
Yes, we have 4 online. Melanie, please go ahead.
Good evening again, Council. I've got a couple of items of comment. One is regarding the traffic around the John Adams School in the mornings and in the afternoons. I know that area has been zoned for a school, but I would advise, encourage an updated traffic survey and compare that to the traffic research that was done when the EIR was completed. I too received the very curt letter that was not dated, did not have my name on it, and was not signed. Curious why it was not signed. Thirdly, the 40 million of current ratepayers' money that the city sent to PCWA, that's, from my understanding, funding for infrastructure for future development, and it's a cash gift from our city to future developers for water for this city. When does the cash come back to the city and the taxpayers? And is there interest earned on the cash that returns to the city from developers for this future infrastructure? Or is this an interest-free financing of the infrastructure for the benefit of developer profits? And additionally, there was some conversation, Paul, that you were involved with on Facebook regarding the sheriff's meeting that they had yesterday or whenever that was earlier this week regarding the inmate, the sexually violent predator inmate that's being released in our county.
Maybe.
And I'm interested to see a copy of the letter that you signed, as well as any other interviews or social media posts or emails that went out that show the city of Lincoln's statement on the release of that prisoner.
Thank you, Melody. John, so I've addressed many of Melanie's questions online. I understand she doesn't want to accept my responses, but would you like to?
Yeah, so specific to the city's contribution to Placer County Water Agency, it is inaccurate to state that it is ratepayer dollars that have been sent to Placer County Water Agency. As I've explained a number of times, the dollars that were sent to Placer County Water Agency for our contribution to the Ophir Water Treatment Plant, which is a critically important water plant that will provide not only redundancy, but clean water to Lincoln now, and long into the future. Those dollars are collected through what are called water connection fees, which are paid for by developers when they pull building permits to build a home in Lincoln. So I'm going to say it one more time. It is not ratepayer dollars that are being used for that. It is dollars that we assess to building permits for new homes that are built in Lincoln. And the reason we do that is precisely to ensure that ratepayers do not subsidize new development. So we can go into a lot more detail about the significant charges that are levied on building permits, and Travis and I can speak to that for quite a bit of time. We spend a lot of time calculating those virtually all the time. And it was always and has always been the city's plan to save those water connection fees for the eventual build of the Ophir Water Treatment Plant, which of our contribution is only a small portion of the total cost of a very, very expensive project. The second half of the question, I think, is related to interest earned. Any interest that's earned between now and when the project actually builds, which we're being told is roughly within a year, I believe they hope to start moving some dirt, will be accrued in that same account and will go forward as an additional credit to the city of Lincoln as our contribution to that project. The financial benefit, and really it's a business decision, is that the city of Lincoln receives a like size deduction in what it would cost for us to reserve capacity for water compared to what it would have cost Placer County Water Agency to finance that. So for example, if they had to finance the $40 million component, they would pass on the cost of that financing to the city of Lincoln. So think about it like paying for something with cash instead of financing it and paying for it over a long period of time. When you pay for it, when you finance something, you pay for it a long period of time. If you've ever seen an amortization schedule, when you buy a home, you realize that a $300,000 loan is you're actually paying quite a bit more than that over 30 years. And so that was the business decision. It was detailed at great length in the report a couple months ago when council heard that item and authorized it.
And all of that information is available online. Correct. All right.
Yes. Don Veltri, please go ahead.
You there, Don?
Don, can you unmute yourself, please? Looks like she's having problems, so we'll go to the next person, Lauren Eason. Oh, Don?
Is that okay? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Thank you for
we
your
can hear you.
patience. Thank you for your patience. First, I want to say thank you once again to Mr. Scully and Miss Christine Melankoff. The fence went up. I'm just giving you the neighborhood update of the Ravine area and Gateway Drive. The fence went up. It's phenomenal. There was just some question because the height was less than what we thought. So there obviously has been some and have successful attempts of people jumping the fence and putting up the gate, putting up baskets and jumping over the fence. So I didn't know if there was an option to add on to the fence or not, or if the proposal bid that came forth was incorrect. I wasn't sure about that. So that was just a question. The other is, I know that Miss Christine, she has graciously shared that she gets from both sides, right? From the homeowners and from the residents and the community, and also from the homeless population, how it hasn't helped them, obviously. So I want to say thank you publicly for her patience and her thought process of the things that she's tried to come up with and come through to satisfy both sides. There's never going to be an easy answer. I know that, but I just want to say thank you publicly for everyone to know how hard that she does work, and so does Mr. Scully. I just wanted to also wonder, the police have come I had suggested, and I don't know if it was a call that came or it just happened to be coincidental, but the Lincoln Police Department did come on Friday. And I don't know if it was just coincidental, like I said, because I said, well, maybe the police can come on Fridays and Saturdays just to kind of, keep the presence so that things would not necessarily go forward with illegal activities. And they were there Friday. So like I said, I don't know if it was a police call or them taking the suggestion, but I want to say thank you for that, because I'm so grateful for that. But I do want to know if possibility that the Lincoln Police Department can have that, I don't want to say urgency, but the sensitivity, so that when we as residents call about the homeless population trespassing in the parking area of us, because I was told our parking is private property, which it is. So it's up to the homeowners association to work with that, which we've tried. We're getting cameras installed, and we already have the parking permit. But when they do come in, that we call the police and say that they are trespassing, because the difficulty is we're not supposed to talk to them because of the abruptness, negativity, cussing, threatening us, that we're supposed to call the police. But if we don't tell them to please leave, I don't know how the law works. That's not my specialty. Are we allowed just to call the police and say they're trespassing, or do we have to say, please leave, and then call the police and say that we asked them to leave as an HOA? So that's my needing to be educated on. I apologize for that. But that's it. So thank you for this time and these efforts put forth. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dawn. Chief, I don't know, do we still require a letter to be on file to be able to violate somebody for trespass?
No, a letter does not have to be on file. That just allows us to act on behalf of the agent or property owner without having to contact them. We can contact them at point in time if there is a trespass issue, and if they want prosecution, then we can do that. The letters are for when the owner is not available. We're acting on their authorization to immediately arrest.
Right, so would a resident, not a member of the HOA board, be able to make that call? And
Yes, they could certainly call us, and then we would go out there, investigate, and then determine if the person parking does have a right to be there or not.
thank you, Chief.
Yes. Lauren Eason, please go ahead. Lauren, if you could unmute yourself, please. Apparently she's having issues too. I'm sorry, it looks like we're having technical difficulties, Lauren.
We have another online. Okay.
No other hands raised.
Want to give her just a moment more. Still no? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on then. One last chance for anybody in chambers that wish to speak on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Move on to our consent agenda. I have had a request to pull item 8B. Item 10D. 10D is in David.
It's not on consent. Yeah, it's not consent.
Okay, Mr. Garabedian. We're not going to be able to do that.
We can talk about it, all right? You can make a comment.
Yeah, you can make a comment anyway. All right. That may be my flaw. Sorry. Any member of the public wish the council to pull an item for discussion? Anyone online, Gwen?
We do have a hand raised. Melanie? Were you wanting to pull in a consent item?
It's already been said, but I just want to make sure I would also like 8B pulled.
Okay. I don't have any other hands raised.
What does it mean to pull an item? So our consent agenda is handled all at once unless an item has been pulled out of that block of items. And so 8B, which I think most of you are here for, has been pulled and will be discussed tonight. So anything that has not been pulled will be handled with one action of the council, and it's generally very routine. You bet. All right, so we have 8B and not 10D because that's general business. Any other requests for an item to be pulled? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second. I have a motion, Andriata, a second. Carlskent? Yeah.
Councilmember, Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlskent,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Joyner.
Yes. All right, we move on to item 8B. Bill, you pulled that item. I don't know, but I'm assuming you pulled it so that you can be consistent in your vote.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know that there's any need for a presentation tonight.
I'm really not happy with the way that this was handled. I'm not happy with the fact that it exists at all, why this was allowed to happen. And I'd like more discussion of it. I'd like to see this discussed a little and studied a little bit more. I mean, I don't see why we need to be all of a sudden raising the utility rates 50 to 70%. And I do vote again, and I am against it.
Okay. Any other member of council have comments or questions? Seeing none. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item, if you could come to the podium. The folks at home need to be able to both see and hear you. So yes, ma'am, go ahead and come up. So I do want to remind everybody that the actual public hearing, which is a very formal process at which people, instead of simply making comments like you'll be able to do tonight, are testifying on the record, and those records could be used, correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, should there be any litigation. This is not that. And so this is the second reading of the item tonight. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Joyce Melvin. Good evening, City Council members. I have a couple questions for you with regard to this increase. Can you kindly confirm?
We can do that, but go ahead and continue your comments.
Okay, because I'd like to know of the respondents, how many voted for it, how many were against, how many were by default government decided tacit proxy voters in favor. Because I, for one, never received nor had a say in the proposal of this exorbitant water increase. And I don't feel like I'm alone because I've spoken to quite a few people and they were totally unaware of this. Now, be it whether it was put into the water bill and people just throw out what they deem, the supplemental garbage, they just want to look at their, in their bill and pay it. Whether they just depend on everything to come via email or pay online, whatever that is. I just find it kind of incredible that in this era of extreme inflation, it defies all logic to think that all citizens were adequately aware for whatever reason, or have been assumed to tacitly agree to this. You've got an awful lot of, people here, I think tonight, due to this letter or getting the information a little late in the process. And that was what propelled myself and my husband to show up tonight, because I don't want to be combative, but I think we all know that there is a lot of mistrust going on with the way that government is perceived right now. And I hope you take that as it's meant, nothing towards you all personally. I think, you're doing a service by, being here to represent your constituency. And, I believe you all have great respect, or I hope you all have great respect for the trust that we put into you to represent our best interests. I think, a lot of things were addressed already, but, my neighbor made me aware of this and is of the firm mind that a lot of this increase was based upon the new builds. And I understand it was addressed to a degree, but, I just wonder why a lot, how we get the supplemental tax bill after we buy a home? That one time, why isn't something like that put on the new homeowners? where they get a one-time charge and that can be used for this instead of passing it on to us to build revenue. But at any rate, it's,
Can I ask you to wrap up your comments? We've got it.
oh, I'm sorry. I
That's
didn't
all right.
realize
No, that's all
I
right.
didn't realize.
I should have said, there's a 3-minute clock each.
Right, I was
individual.
aware, but I didn't pay attention.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Thank you.
What was your name, ma'am?
Joyce Melvin.
Joyce. Thank you. So I can do this one or two ways. Would you like me just to kind of save up all the questions and we'll respond to them, or? Okay, we'll do it that way. So we'll get everybody's questions answered as best we can. I think what we'll do is go ahead and take all the comments, collect those questions, and then have staff respond to them. So Margaret Rivas.
Hello. I found out about this rate increase at the time that I attended, actually here I attended one setting with Sean and staff to get an explanation of why we needed to have rate increases. And he did a very good job of explaining the need for an increase. The issue that I have, and I did attend the last council meeting, and I'm going to start attending all of them so I become more informed. But what I don't get is the degree of, okay, we've got 5 years where we've gotten permission because we didn't get a majority of people protesting. So we have the okay to raise the rates for the next 5 years. And let's make it so that we have enough to make up for all of the stuff that didn't get done when it should have been done. So right now I'm looking at, okay, we need to raise it, but my issue has to do not with, do we need it to be increased? I don't have an issue with that. My issue has to do with the degree of increase. My hope was that after you listen to all of the speakers, that you would take into consideration the hardship that you're going to be putting. And I heard someone at the last meeting say, oh, but for those people that are, low income, we have a plan for them, and we have a plan for some seniors. We have a plan to help them. To me, that's fine and good. But for the rest of us, it really is a sharp increase. And it's, 70, 80% for this year. Then next year it goes up. The year after that, it's going to continue and on for 5 years, because we've basically, by not objecting or protesting, we've basically given you permission to take a raise every year for the next 5 years because we did not protest. You didn't get a majority of people saying, no, we have issues. So for me, it's like, okay, I go with, we need an increase, but I do not support the fact that it's going like sky high, especially with inflation, with all of the things, all of the costs, all of the extra expenses that we're getting with everything. We're getting hit with everything. And Holly, I don't remember, I can't pronounce your last name. Andrada, I remember last time you mentioned that, you as council members are also going to have to pay, more for your water rates because you're not getting a break on it either. But I think you have to consider the community as a whole. We have 5,000 new homes coming in on, I'll be 2 seconds, down off of Ferrari. And I understand that they pay to connect, but they do not pay for maintenance or repair. So later on, you're going to have to come up with more money too. But I would beg you, please reconsider the high rates. You got my vote next time, as long as you be reasonable.
Got it. Thank you. Folks, please, please. All right. Doug Berngart, is it? You good? All right. Wow. If this was a Rotary meeting, the fine master would be coming to you right now. That's all right. So Margaret, just because we did a groundbreaking on the project you're talking about this morning, the first phase of that project is 500 homes. It'll take a number of years for that to build out. The cost of the infrastructure alone that needs to go in over the next couple of years is a $50 million investment in building that entire water system, sewer system, everything else. That's their contribution to our system. Yep. Rick Sereno? Serrero, sorry. Got it. I like it.
First of all, it is Rick Carrero. I'm a new resident here the last 2 years. Jackie and I moved to Sun City, Lincoln Hills. I basically wanted to just say ditto. I want to make this really quick and easy for you. And first of all, thank you all. I've done this before in San Jose, and I really appreciate everybody who does civil service. It's just amazing, and I appreciate that deeply. And thank you as well. Simply, those of us who are on fixed income, I was able to put in 25 years here in California in retirement, so I've got that for retirement. And Jackie's on a low level of Social Security. So again, just to reiterate how much that affects us. And maybe it could be amortized over a longer period of time, something like that to help us, or have some kind of program to help us. That's all I'm requesting. And I appreciate your position as well. Thank you very much, and thanks for the time.
Thank you, Rick. Last card I have is Joyce Melvin. All right. We have anyone online? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Mike gave me a list of all those that he wishes to speak about. So, Mr. Garabedian.
Mike Garabedian, Placer County tomorrow. Don't remind me of the list. I thought there was just one more maybe, but I may not be here for that. So I want to focus on the sewer rate issue and specifically the new federal state water pollution program that I believe the city would have to enter into that. Regarding the North Auburn area, it's an industrial commercial area that at one time had its own sewer plant, a very special sewer plant designed for its facilities. And instead, as many know here, it was piped down to this Lincoln sewer plant. And the program I want to talk about is the industrial pretreatment program. It's part of the Clean Water Act that I actually testified to Congress on in 1982. And what it does, it regulates industries and some commercial outfits that discharge into sewer systems. And so they have to be studied. They're called significant industrial users, or SIUs. They have to be studied for their operations and the mechanisms that there are to make sure that their discharges into the sewer system are up to par, and they also look for illegal discharges and things like that into sewer systems. So this is required because when the community gets to 5 million gallons a day, they have to do this program. It's mandatory at that point. And I see Commissioner Carlos is nodding. He's familiar with it somewhat, if not more than I am. So this will have some expense to it, of course. I don't know if the rates affect that. I don't know if the industries that would have to contribute to the cost. I don't know how the ones I worked on were funded actually, but it will be an issue that will actually come before you for approval once the program is defined and put in place. I don't know how that will affect or tie into rates the rates that would go on. I don't know what I'd be happy to do is, because I've worked on that issue and program quite a bit, I'd be glad to discuss it in more detail now, anytime actually with the staff or again before you about how it works and how it affects industries. It might, if a future business that is in one of these SIUs, if they are planning to move here, it might affect them that they would find out they would be subject to the pretreatment program if they move here. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Mayor, we do have a couple people online. Lauren Eason, please go ahead. Lauren.
Have I successfully unmuted?
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
Thank goodness.
I hope that my comments will be not out of context at this point. I do echo most of the questions that Melody communicated, and many of the others as well. I feel that communication is key in so many ways, in so many things. And today I received the letter in today's mail, and it's post dated August 19th. So it feels as though there really wasn't any intent for me to be able to receive the information in a timely fashion in order to potentially act upon it in a timely fashion. So that, in a sense, is kind of insulting, but I don't blame council for that. I think it's just a matter of communication and the history in Lincoln. Let's not forget, so that we won't be condemned to repeat, that there is a history of non-compliance and mismanagement, and there was illegal tiering of water in the past, and the city was penalized, and then residents who still remained were reimbursed. So it doesn't really feel like good faith efforts are really being put forth when important matters are handled this way. In regards to communication, I do not feel that social media should be driving our methods of communicating city business to the residents. It needs to be discussed openly in public forums such as this. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I've been here in Sun City, Lincoln Hills for 7 years, and I've been in Lincoln for nearly 20. So I have firsthand experience of those things that I alluded to. And I'm just very, very skeptical because of the history that we have in this city. So in order to repair that damage, and I realize you probably weren't even in office at that time, but in order to repair that damage, extreme efforts should be made to clearly communicate in timely and polite fashion to the residents of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Melanie, please go ahead.
Yes, hello again, council. I'm just going to echo what you've heard from some other residents, but I want to say thank you to Councilmember Lauritsen for his stance on this. I too understand that costs increase and utility costs increase, but the way that this has been handled in the last 3 to 4 to 6 years, and Paul Joyner, certainly in your 14-year term on the city council, one cannot imagine how you did not see this coming. The last minute action that this council is taking to double or triple the water rates is a disservice to this community here in Lincoln. Your mission statement as the council is to provide the highest level of service responsive to our community's expectations and to enhance the quality of life and economic vitality. Increasing the utility rates at this rate does not seem in line with your mission statement as the council. I also just want to say that letter that went out, why was it not signed this last 2 days, whatever was mailed on the 19th? Additionally, the mailings that went out with regards to the protest form, were any of those mailed or sent or available in Spanish or any other language other than English? Was it available online in different Spanish or anything else? And was it available in Braille? Curious about that. But again, I cannot imagine how this just snuck up on any of you, and now we're having to double or triple the rates.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Anyone else online?
Yes, Mayor. Kimberly Adams, please go ahead. Kimberly, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you. We've been living here, my husband and I, for the last 2 years. And we have not had one bit of, I guess, communication sent in regards to these meetings. So this is one of the first meetings that I get to attend. I am very disappointed with the communication in regards to the water and utility increase. I think it is a disservice for the newer homeowners as well as the older homeowners to find out that it was happening and not a lot of communication was made for this. So I just feel like our voices as a city need to be heard. And I feel like this is kind of trying to be swept under the rug, and it's not right. And if you value yourself so high as a city to provide better needs for people, then better communication would definitely be a big thing to change.
Thank you, Kimberly.
No other hands are raised, Mayor.
Thank you. We have someone in the audience, yes. Hiding behind the screen.
So I wasn't actually going to talk, and I don't actually come to these meetings very often. So the hike increase is, I mean, most people get a 3 to 5% increase in wages, maybe if that, right? Even the last couple of years, especially due to COVID, raises were not given as much. A 50 to 70% increase in this water bill was astronomical. That made me get out here, right? I'm a newly foster parent of a 14-month-old baby, right? I'm not spending time with her because I'm coming here because there's no way. It's very economically hurtful to us as citizens of Lincoln. And I've lived here about 20 years. I love this town. I love what it's given to me. And I don't understand why it can't increase 2 to 3% every year. If that's what your goal is to do, right? I don't remember having a hike increase this much over the last 20 years, and maybe not much at all, right? So this really affects us financially, especially if you're on one income. I don't even know how most of us, can start paying this, right? So and then we are having a lot of new homes too. Those new homes that come in, they should be bringing in income in itself too. So I'm not sure why that's also not all, coming together.
So, thanks,
Eileen.
folks.
Mayor, we did have another hand go up.
Go
Mary,
ahead, stay in room for the moment. and then
okay, I'm sorry.
Come on up, sir.
I don't need to repeat what they've said. I do want to say just one thing though, and it's that I think the 60% increase is quite a jolt. And I've asked some of my neighbors and friends that live in Lincoln, and a lot of people aren't aware that this is going to hit them in October. So even though you sent out the mailers, a lot of us pay our bill online and we didn't see it coming. So the communication factor is really important. Otherwise, you end up with a public relations nightmare.
Thank you. Who do you have online?
Mary Nader, please go ahead.
Mary, you there? There we go.
Go ahead. Mary?
Oh, you know what? It's me. I never got the link, so Mary Nader sent me the link. It's
Okay.
Fran Nevis.
Hey,
I
Fran.
think, hi, so I think it's me. You've already started the time, may I speak? Okay, well, one, as Mr. Chapman pointed out, you have raised the rate 4 times in the last 10 years. And the second thing I'd like to say is when the state had the drought, we went along with what the state said, but we were always assured that we had plenty of water coming from 3 sources, and it wasn't really a problem. And then the other thing was that, people come and speak to you, but everybody thinks it's a done deal. Like, I'm not in Mr. Lawrence's district, but I agree with him. I don't see any reason why the rates have to be increased the way you're increasing them. I see a lot of, you look around now, a lot of people's landscaping is dry and dead already because they're trying to save on their water. And as far as, so that's it for the water. It's like you could change, you could do it differently. And you have the power to do that. You don't have to raise the rate the way you have it. And then the other thing, the letter, there could have been an explanation with the letter. That would have certainly helped. You know, I've heard a lot about the letter. I got the letter myself. And the other thing I want to say, since I'm here, is that I went to the hearing yesterday in Auburn about releasing the sexual predator into Placer County. And I was really surprised that I was impressed with all the people who were there supporting our district attorney and all the people trying to keep the inmate from being released into a transient situation. I mean, there were state people, there were representatives, all the cities were there except Lincoln.
And forgive me, I need to pull you back to the item that's in front of us.
Okay, well, I see it. I still have a minute there. And I just want to say, I went to that hearing yesterday and there wasn't anyone from Lincoln to representing Lincoln there. And
I was
so
on
if there's another one, I hope there will be somebody representing Lincoln
There
there.
is a court hearing, I believe, September 1st, dealing with it.
Yeah, but I'm going to just say again, since I've still got 30 seconds, you got, you know, the majority of the people in Lincoln want you to change how you're doing the rating, and you do have the power to do that. And they all think it's a done deal. You're going to do what you want to do, but you don't have to. You can change that. You don't have to raise the rate the way you want to do it by October. You could change it, and it's going to help a lot of people if you do, and it will certainly be good for all of you. Thank you.
All right.
And thanks, Mary, for letting me in.
Mayor, we do have one more hand.
Okay, and then I've got another in chambers.
Nick Olivera.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to be one more voice just to kind of echo what everybody's saying. Everybody's had a lot of great points. I too didn't get any of the mailers until the one today at the last minute. I didn't get any of the petition, didn't even know any of this was going on until recent. That's why I'm here. You know, a lot of people made some valid points with inflation and not getting raises, that this is going to impact, you know, single income families with children in our city or children in our families. You guys have the power to, you know, change this. I agree there's, you know, that the prices do go up and we do need to contribute more, but never in my 42 years have I ever had a rate increase go up 50 or 60% in anything. I mean, PG&E and gas taxes are ridiculous enough, and this is astronomical compared to what they're doing to us. So I just hope that you guys, you know, think about what everybody's saying, do the right thing. I certainly don't know everybody in Lincoln, but everybody that I talk to, there has never been one person that said, oh my God, this is great. I can't wait to pay 50 or 60 more % on my water bill. So
There's not a
thank you.
single council member that's thinking that either, by the way. Thank you. So, yes. Yeah, all I can see is a hand back behind the podium, so.
I started out wondering what the response rate was in total.
Yep.
And if you could address that, how
will.
many responded, how many were for it, how many against, and how many just, you said no one responded, so we're going through. Can I?
So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this comment period, and then I'm going to get your answers for you
Okay, great.
Okay.
And then one last thing.
quickly.
Lots been said about the letter. Let's make lemonades out of a lemon. If it brought this many people here,
There you go.
I think it's a good thing, but I think that we are all gonna have this in our minds quite a bit. And I urge you, please reconsider this and refrain from putting this into action and instead get a proper consensus from a reasonable majority of citizens in Lincoln. Proceeding with this really feels like a betrayal by those we have entrusted and believed would care for our well-being, security, quality of life, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks. Please.
Hi, I voiced my protest of the rate increase last meeting. I still affirm that 100%. But following up to all of this, one question that I can't figure out is why is the process structured where we have to protest the increase rather than vote for it. I don't know what else we do in this country where we have to vote against something instead of for it. So if you could explain why the process is this way and how we can get that changed, that'd be great. Thank you.
That would be state law, I believe. Yep. All right, anyone else in chambers? Yes, you, sir. Hold on.
Everybody's talking about 50, 60%. I think I was reading it was 84% for the water increase, right? 84, then 3% the next 9 years, not 5 years, 9 years, right? Is that right?
Oh, it's a 5-year.
It's a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
5-year plan. Okay, with that heavy increase like that, and the city manager, after everybody spoke on the last meeting, you came out and pretty much said, well, it's just for emergency. There's no plan or no development. This is what we're going to use the money for. Now, I read the Placer County's grand jury report about when they had the 41 million, you guys had the $41 million there. You're giving loans out to the airport. Let's see who else it was, the fire department. And to, I think it was the redevelopment agency. And the redevelopment agency, we have no plans to pay it back. Now, I know the airport should be self-sufficient. Taxpayers should not be funding the airport. Because I think 99% of the people in Lincoln don't even use that airport. In the fire department, we should have put a measure out or a prop out, you know, people of that. And how's the fire department going to pay that back? So we had the money there. So if there's no emergency the next 3-4 years, what are you guys going to do with that money? We're going to do the same thing as far as taking out, giving loans that are not going to be repaid. I mean, this increase is going to hurt a lot of people in Lincoln, especially especially the people in District 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, I'm going to ask again, please. I know that you want to support the perspective that you have as well, but there may be somebody in the audience that's intimidated by that and doesn't want to speak as a result. I agree, probably not, but I just want to make sure. If you could come up to the podium, please. The folks at home can't see or hear you.
My name is Barbara Salami, and I am a resident of Sun City, and I received the pamphlet that encouraged you to calculate your new rates beginning in October. And man is correct, it is substantially higher than 70%. But I did not see any line that said you could protest or that there was a protest form included in that. And it's the last thing I received from the water department except the bill. And there was no mention on those bills, except this letter that came yesterday, that there was any kind of action that was going to be taking place immediately. I understood the information that you sent out pamphlet-wise is that it was a done deal. Is that true? There was a ballot in the material. All right, then I guess I overlooked that. But how many would respond then in writing or came to a meeting is going to be discussed?
This is the last meeting where this will be discussed.
I mean, as far as the number who protested, either written or verbally in the
that in just a
past.
second. As soon as
It
we
will be
close-
discussed. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I like the way you did that. That got my attention.
I walked that way in this age. Didn't intend to get this old, but here I am. I got the letter. First of all, I got the original notice. And I looked at it and I thought, what's that mean? You know, set it around. We talked about it with my neighbor. Then I sent it in, my protest. She sent hers in. And I'm shocked that most people probably didn't even read it. Most people probably threw it away. My point is it looks to me now, even though it's possible that people didn't know what it was, it's a done deal. It is a done deal. For those in Sun City who maybe only get Social Security, that's all some of those ladies get. And it's $800 a month. Their house is paid for, but this town is rich on tax dollars. You've got Sun City with 6,900 homes paying. I pay $8,500 a year for property tax.
Most of
You
which goes
got-
to the state and to the county and to the schools.
Well, yeah, but it comes back. Some of it. And I think that not only that, the tax dollars for Lincoln, but the fact is we have a police department that is not dealing with a bunch of teenagers. So we're saving them 6,900 calls a night. But at any rate, we're not using the services. Maybe what we do use is the ambulance to try to get a husband up and into bed. Okay, so that's all I have to say. I'm Mary O'Neill and I live in Sun City. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. It's good to know the chief's got the golf cart racing under control. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Adrian Montenegro. I'm pretty much born and raised here. Question for you guys. Do you guys know what the demographic is for Hispanic households in Lincoln? Okay, so I think someone brought it up earlier, that pamphlet or the mailer was not in Spanish. And so you just lost all those votes that probably would have voted against it. So I just want you guys to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Clint Ritchie. I didn't know I could speak without filling out an application beforehand, but thank you. I welcome this opportunity to address the council. I had no idea this was going on until I got this ubiquitous letter that we all got that wasn't signed. That's why I'm here tonight. Had I always pay it online. I never saw any other missives about this. I didn't see about to send back. I would have sent back a rejection of the increase. Today is the first time we've even heard that the rate increase was going to be like 50, 60, 70%. So this is really a shock to me. I don't know how many others are shocked. I just come here because I got this little letter in the mail. I said, I better go find out what's going on. So thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm against that kind of rate increase.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First of all, excuse my English is not very good. But anyways, this increase is going to be a disaster for all the Lincoln residential. You know, it is people don't have food to eat. I volunteer to go food bank to feed 70 families. And these people, they already don't have money to buy food. How they gonna pay the increase? This is a disaster. So I mean, you have the power to back this up and have a mercy on these poor people. And I appreciate it, you. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw one more over here. Yes.
Hello, council members. I'm new to this. My name is Janet Adler. I've lived here for 22 years in Sun City. And I just want to ask you, is it a possibility that you can resend the ballot in different languages for the protesting to all of us to get it? Now that we know, after this letter, we know that we should have protested before and we didn't have a clue. So is it possible to resend the protest ballot in different languages or whatever, so that everybody knows it's coming, we can sign our names and we can send it back to you? That's all.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kevin Siddle. I have basically three questions. How many mailers went out? And how many of them were returned in the positive? And how many were returned in the negative?
Going to get you all that information. Anyone else? And nobody cheat. I'm not quite able to keep track. There've been a few of you.
Just one quick thing, along with the percentage of that did not, or the percentage that did protest, if you could also include the number that were rejected, because one of the issues with the way that this was set up, in order for it, for you to send it in, a lot of people were discouraged, those that did see it, because it was required to have an assessment parcel number.
No.
Yeah.
No, that was one way that you got to identify yourself.
If you don't know it and don't know where to find it and getting your tax bill, all my stuff is automatic. I never see a tax bill. Everything just goes automatically. But people that I know had difficulty trying to figure out where to get it.
Got it. Thank you. We presented all of that information at our last council meeting, but if there are no more comments, we'll go ahead and try to address all the questions.
We do have a couple hands raised on Zoom. Olga, please go ahead. Olga, please unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, thank you so much. First of all, I'm so grateful we have even the opportunity to be on Zoom. It makes sense to have that opportunity to address the council. So thank you for that. Not so much questions as much as maybe notes or observation. Bad news travels fast, and that applies to everything. However, I think it's terrific the amount of concerned citizens asking wonderful questions, showing their concern and really showing up. And so perhaps the observation at this point would be, a lot of the residents that I live with, which is Lincoln Crossing and the HOA, we face the same challenges. Really, we do. Just getting folks to even vote on new board members is a challenge, right? Participation is always a struggle. And so I think the observation here is a lot of local residents that I know found out through social media. And so perhaps we can use that as an opportunity to turn it into something positive. And that's just to say, I think it shows good faith, and it shows through efforts of just trying to reach as many people as possible when it comes to something so significant like this, increase. I think a lot of people would probably not have such a bad taste in their mouth. And I think that's what's happening right now. I've seen it happen before professionally, and even now in this HOA where generally folks don't like to read. And that's not your fault. As council, you're doing your best, and snail mail is sometimes legally necessary, right, to notify folks. But most definitely, I'm sure you've noticed that social media has become an ideal means of communication. And so maybe to use this opportunity to become useful and to hopefully show the residents that you do want to make every effort to notify everyone. I received the letter, didn't receive the previous mailing to protest, but that's besides the point. It's my responsibility as a resident, right, to know what's going on. And so I take that on. But yet so many people didn't know. And then all of a sudden, within the last 24 hours, everyone on Facebook is talking about it. So I hope that that can be at least useful to all of you. You're in a very, I'm sure, challenging position, and you are trying to do your best. And we hope that you can, make those decisions for us. So that was it. More of an observation than a question at this point.
All right.
Thank you.
You, Olga. And if I'm not mistaken, I too live in Lincoln Crossing. I don't think that there has ever been a quorum of the residents to vote on any item.
That's correct. That is correct. So we understand more than anything, and I understand that it's a multi-layered issue. But wow, look at the turnout out there today.
It is. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Gwen?
Yes. Next we have Joni Kubias. Sorry about that, Joni. Can you unmute yourself, please, Joni? Go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. Yes.
This is Joni Kubias, and I just have a couple of clarifying questions for the council. One, and perhaps this was asked and answered, forgive me if that's the case, but regarding the protest, and I know you're going to address the submissions in a minute, but one of the questions I have is, were the submissions rejected if they didn't have the APN number? So that's one clarifying question. And I don't know if you can answer it now or if you want to wait for the next segment. And then my next question regarding that is, why were the protests only allowable from property owners when investors aren't typically the ones paying the water bill? So it really should have gone to occupants, not necessarily the property owners in this situation. So those are just two things that I don't know if you want to address it now.
We're gonna have staff address all the questions.
Okay. Okay, the next part that I just wanted to touch on is that, I mean, I think you know that a rate increase like this is going to be a problem. Quite frankly, it's kind of a slap in the face for the residents that that voted you into office. And you have an opportunity here to either be proactive or reactive. And I think that there was no intention for everybody to find out about this because you wanted this to happen, because the idea of the big storage unit in Ophir is really exciting. But there will be a reaction to this. And I think you're already seeing that. And that can get really ugly. And as a local realtor, I can tell you that, when home buyers are looking between Rockland, Roseville, and Lincoln, the fact that these water rates are tripling is going to be terrible for our home values as well. Roseville at least has Roseville Electric. Rockland has, typically what is generally referred to as better schools than Lincoln schools. And then, so Lincoln now, so you've got disgruntled citizens, you've got triple the, ridiculous water bills, ridiculous sewer bill that's going to be tripled as well. In addition to everything else, I don't think it's a good idea. I think you really need to rethink the people that you represent, and especially in this time with, as other people have mentioned, increasing inflation. And I think it's really going to hurt the people that you represent. So I hope that you will give this a second thought.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Lena Lebowski. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Council. I just want to thank you and the city for all the communication you have put out on this issue. I believe this is the 4th time it's been on the agenda of City Council. There have been 5 workshops held all over the city. I've seen it on social media time and time again. And I just want to thank you for putting out all the information. And I would encourage everyone, it's so easy to attend City Council meeting. You can do it on Zoom. You can watch it on TV. You can go online and just read the agenda. That's the way you stay up with what's going on in the city. So I would encourage everyone to be more involved in their city and stay up with what's going on. So I thank you.
Thank you for that, Lena. I appreciate it. Anyone else going?
No other hands are raised.
Last chance in chambers.
I'm sorry, one just went up. Can I ask anybody that's on Zoom that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'll call you one at a time, but if you are interested in making a comment, please raise your hand now. Matthew Joyce, please go ahead. Matthew, can you unmute yourself?
Yep, sorry. It's been an interesting experience trying to find the link to join. I was watching YouTube previously. First of all, thanks for letting me speak. Such short notice. Just a couple of points I wanted to make was in the previous meeting, you had talked about how new construction funds quite a lot of the cost towards the infrastructure for the water and things like that. My suggestion would be that possibly the charges for new construction with regarding to infrastructure be raised probably double what they currently are, maybe as a way to help pay for some of these changes. And the second thing would be to echo what a lot of people already said, which is that there's a lot of people who are understandably a little bit upset at maybe not having as much notice or not hearing about it with as much notice as they might have previously had, and possibly reissuing the notice, allowing people another opportunity to object, this time in English as well as in Spanish. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Mayor, no other hands are raised.
Anyone else in chambers that has not yet spoken? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item. Glenn, why don't we start with you? If you've got all the numbers? Okay.
So, okay, I'm gonna try to slowly and surely make my way through all of these, and I was taking notes, and I'm just gonna do my best. First off, the question that was asked a number of times about how many protests were received as part of the process. The answer is 1,348 no protests of 25,120 notices, roughly. That's give or take how many went out. Those go out to both property owners and current residents. It's one vote for property. You don't get to vote twice for one property. The idea being that the utility account holder, which in some cases is the property owner and in some cases is not the property owner, whoever is responsible for that, for participating in the utility, gets the opportunity to protest. Of that amount, the total that accounts for roughly 5%, just barely 5% of total utility accounts. In order to overturn the proposed rate structure, the required vote amount would have been a little less than 10 times that amount, 12,561 votes. That would have been 50% plus one of the total utility accounts that were noticed. The question was asked how many affirmative votes. This is what's kind of called a negative vote process. So in order to overturn, a simple majority plus one is how it's designed. And then the question was asked a number of times, well, why is the process like this? And I'm so glad you asked. The California voters are responsible for this process. They passed many years back Proposition 218, which was a constitutional amendment that designed this process for rate increases. We are required to follow it to the letter of the law. And a question, I'm going to skip around a little bit because some of the questions that were not sequential relate to others. One of the questions was, well, can you resend the ballot? In order to resend the ballot, we would essentially need to end this process and restart the entire process over again. But I'll just say this is just my personal opinion and perspective, having done this for some time. I can guarantee everybody in this room that if we were to do that, we would receive more protests for sure, but we would also receive the exact same types of comments at the end of that 45-day period about lack of notice. And the lady on the line mentioned something about folks that sometimes people don't read them. Sometimes, I don't blame anybody if they missed it or didn't have time to get to it. Everybody's busy. They have children, they have jobs. This is detailed financial information that really requires somebody to sit down and look through it, but it's detailed on purpose because we wanted the community, and the community must be aware of the gravity of the financial situation that these three utility funds find themselves in. I'm going to touch on that again later as I get to some of the other questions, but that's that for now. Why don't we charge new development to make up these rates? So Proposition 218, again, voter approved, specifically says that you are to pay for your proportionate service received or impact to the system. So it would be, and that's designed intentionally so, because the California voters did not want, one group of people to pay more for the same service than another group of people. Everybody, the idea is to pay essentially your fair share of what it costs to deliver water, to flush your toilet, to pick up your trash, whatever the service may be. And the other thing I just mentioned about, because this is a common theme we hear a lot about, is new development. Shouldn't we be charging new development more? new development pays a significant amount to even buy into the system, let alone the rates that they pay when they come in. But what I would just say generally about new development is remember that that is not, the developers that are writing those checks are not writing those checks out of the goodness of their heart. They are passing along that cost to the homeowner. So you may not see it in the form of a bill, but I can guarantee that you're seeing it in the form of your overall mortgage. And that's just simply the reality of it. There was a couple questions about inflation and how can, you know, at this time when we're all dealing with significant inflation, that's absolutely correct. That is not the only reason, but it's a significant reason for why this is such a significantly serious problem in all three funds. For those folks, I'll come back to that. Mr. Garabedian mentioned the new federal program regarding industrial pretreatment. Mr. Garabedian, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about that anytime you're available. We actually only really have one wet user in Lincoln, and they certainly will be required to comply with any new federal discharge requirements. There was a number of comments about the letter that was received today. Now that I've noticed, good faith efforts need to be made, and not just on social media. We totally agree with that. I've been through a number of these rate increases, and more than any in my career, we held community meetings at Sun City. We held community meetings at Cavadero. We held 2 community meetings here in the downtown area here at City Hall. We held an online Zoom meeting in case folks just couldn't get away from kids at home to participate. I personally spoke with, I have trouble even quantifying how many people on the phone, at the counter, and I know our staff have done that too. And we tried to do everything that we could reasonably do, besides the other jobs that we have here running day-to-day operations, to interact as much as possible to communicate the severity of the situation. And I know that a lot of folks are here tonight for the first time, and this is the first time you're hearing this information. And so what you're going to hear here in a moment is going to be really disappointing to you. But I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm going to say the same thing I said at Sun City. My job is to represent the financial position of your utility funds in a correct, honest, and direct way. All three funds, for a variety of reasons, are all within about 18 to 30 months, roughly, going to go insolvent, which is a fancy term for bankrupt. And the consequence of that is the potential for service disruptions, cuts to services. Now, one of the things that came up a number of times during all of these community meetings as well, Sean, what are you telling me? Are you going to stop sending me water when I turn on my faucet? Well, no, of course not. But what I'm telling you is that in order for us to keep those funds active and liquid, forgive the term, but liquid, we would essentially have to subsidize those funds from the general fund, which from a finance perspective is about the worst position you could find yourself in. Because practically what that means, to be clear, is if these funds go bankrupt, we will not be able to afford our current staffing within the fire department, our current staffing within the police department, and the other 2 major functions that are funded out of the general fund are recreation and library services. I'm not going to go into detail about how deep those cuts would be, because I don't think that it's fair to the staff that are probably watching at this time, but suffice to say, it would be significant. So I'm only mentioning that so that you understand how intertwined all of these issues are. The utility funds really must stand on their own. There was a number of comments made in online and in the room tonight and in the past as well, that I think sort of take away a little bit from the high level discussion that we're all having about how important this decision is, which is sort of flippant comments that we're doubling and tripling rates. If you read the notice, you will not see the term double or triple And you will not see the percentage component of double or triple anywhere in the rates. The specific percentage, the gentleman stood up and he was, I think, absolutely correct, where he referenced that it would be approximately 84% in terms of water, a relatively minor increase in garbage, and close to a doubling in sewer. But the way to review them when you look at your bill or your notice is not in terms of the percentage increase. I would encourage you to go down one more little level and you can actually see the dollar difference between those. So let's see, I'll make sure I'm getting to all of these. I also really encourage everybody. We spent a lot of time, effort, and resources in doing a full deep dive analysis that's available for anybody to read and evaluate and propose alternatives, of which we've received 0 so far. That will give you the tools, if you'd like to look into the finances. You don't need to be a CPA to do it. It's not overly complex. Most of it is pretty, it's not all that different from balancing your own personal finances. We talked about utility funds being self-sufficient. There was a term that was used a couple times about betrayal. One of the things I think that's important to point out is this council's responsibility and the staff's responsibility as well is to make sure that essential public services, police, fire, water, sewer, garbage, public works, et cetera, are delivered without interruption to the public. And part of that is evaluating how much it costs to provide that service. I can tell you that when we received the preliminary results back of where we think we needed to be to address the fact that no real significant rate changes have been made in Lincoln in 10 years, we were pretty disappointed as well to see that. Our job is always to try to find the absolute lowest number that we can charge to provide an adequate and professional service. This rate, I'm just going to use water as an example, represents the operational costs it costs to deliver it, the wholesale costs we have to use to purchase a lot of our water. So a lot of people don't know that Lincoln's water supply, 75% of it comes from the Sierras, and we buy that water at wholesale prices and then send it out to our customers. We do pump about 25% of our water from area wells, and the cost for buying that water wholesale from the Placer County Water Agency has been raising steadily over the last 10 years as they have adjusted for inflation themselves. Fran Nevis made a comment about the sexual predator. I don't think I need to address that. A gentleman mentioned that I said at the last meeting that this rate increase is just for an emergency. I'm not sure what portion of my statement was interpreted that way. Certainly portions of the rate are set aside in the event of an emergency. So for example, we every week, I would say, I don't know, I'm looking at you, Matt, if I'm right or not, but roughly every week we have some type of system issue inside the water department that requires our crews to go out and fix significant line breaks or pressure issues, and or contract for that work to be done if it's above our ability to do it in-house. And certainly having money set aside in that event is critically important, because the outside possibility, if that's not what happens, is you lose pressure to your system and then bad things start to happen. Bacteria grows inside water lines that are not constantly kept at a certain pressure level. And so I've worked in communities, unfortunately, that have gone through that. And you have to send out, some people probably here are old enough to know about boil water notices, where you receive them and you can't drink the water. You got to boil it first before you ingest it, just to be safe. And fortunately, Lincoln is not in that position yet, but we don't ever want to find ourselves in it. There was a comment made about the town is rich on tax dollars. I appreciate the comment very much. Unfortunately, I think as the mayor mentioned, of every dollar you pay in property tax, The city and county split approximately 33 cents of that dollar, and the city usually ends up with a less than 50-50 share of it, depending on where you live in town. So roughly of every dollar you pay, the city's property tax, we receive about roughly, I'm generalizing, but roughly 14 cents on the dollar. And it's, I know, disappointing news, because I, just like all of you, would like my money to stay local and go to support our public safety. That's simply not the case. The mailer did have a reference in Spanish about where more information can be obtained in Spanish and full Spanish resources. Can you read? We talked about resending the ballot. Were the submissions rejected if they did not have an APN? The answer to that is no. We filled that in for the resident when it came in. Why only property owners? It was not only property owners. If you received a ballot and you're a renter and you decided to protest the rates, your vote was counted just like a property owner's vote would count. I'd recommend everybody, if they haven't been able to see it yet, it's still in your notices. We have it online. There was a comment made about Rockland and Roseville rates. We did a full comparative analysis of a number of other jurisdictions that are local to us. You will see that, at least at current rates, we are the lowest and have been the lowest for over a 10-year period. And that is one reason why a course correction is critical at this point. Finally, there was a question about raising or doubling the fees on new construction to pay for the deficit. Were that possible? We would love to do that. Although I think that, like I said earlier, what we're really doing in that case is assessing people that are moving into town, something that they actually haven't had any responsibility in participating in. And so there's a lack of equity to that. And look, everybody lives in a home that was built by somebody at one point. And so that's sort of where we're at on that. I know I had to kind of ramble through all those questions, but I wanted to make sure I tried to address on almost every single one of them. At the end of the day, I think I'll just wrap with saying is, and I also appreciated the couple comments about the letter. We understand that was a difficult letter to receive. The reality is that we could have editorialized it a little bit, but it's really important in a process that's intended to be legal in nature that you do not mess with what the statute is. You share the information as it's written by the legislature, even if we tend to disagree with that legislature from time to time. And so I'll end by saying this, and I'm certainly willing to answer any more council questions, but as we've explained at a number of different meetings, this is a position that is no one is happy about, not at a staff level, not at a council level. The alternatives that we have discussed include shorting something somewhere. And so the value decision for the council is, are you willing to risk that? And the risk is either bankruptcy, or you could short your CIP programs. And for folks that are here for the first time, your capital improvement programs, which means replacing your infrastructure that gets old and you need to make sure that it stays healthy and active. And the risk in cutting your CIP budget is that in the event that you do have an emergency, or an area of town like downtown, for example, that has very, very old lines, some of them are over 80 years old, you will not have the funds to address those problems, and you'll have to take from some other essential service. So while this seems like a pretty matter-of-fact decision, it's extremely complex from the perspective of, regardless of the decision tonight, the numbers don't change. You can put it out again another 45 days. You can have the discussion again in a year. Numbers will not get better. They will only get worse. And that's just the reality of it. And look, that's the last thing I want to do is communicate that information. But again, I'm not paid to sugarcoat it. I'm paid to tell you the way we read it. And I hope that helps. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Sean. I think you covered pretty much every item.
Mayor, one more thing.
Sorry, Matthew.
as a public works director and discussing utility rates, I think it's critical that I do at least speak to this item. And one of the questions that Sean did miss was, what is the plan for the money? Is there a plan for the money? Are we subsidizing future development? And that's absolutely not the case. We do have detailed analysis in all three utilities. We have studies available on the website. One thing I'd like to mention is this is a 5-year rate study, and the level of investment that we looked at was anticipating about a 2% growth in operational costs, and then a component of capital investment that is really at the subsistence level. That would be that we can reliably provide the same level of service over the next 5 years. And we do have higher needs for capital investment. Some of the items we're looking at is funding 1 mile of pipeline replacement for each utility. And we have 250 miles. So if you did the math, that would take 250 years to cycle through our system. Obviously, the pipe's not going to last 250 years. So, and we also have other expensive assets. It's probably approaching $1.5 billion between the wastewater and water, but certainly over $1 billion. So we do have an expensive system, and it's critical infrastructure for civilization. Water and sewers, you can't live without it. So this investment level is the responsible level. We're not getting the Cadillac. We're buying the used Civic here. That's going to get us from point A to point B. And I really would recommend that we approve this rate. We definitely we're empathetic to the impact, but it's critical that we provide this essential service to the community. And yes, can we survive for 5 years if it was less? Sure, but I don't think it's the responsible thing to do. Again, emergency work is really expensive, and this is the subsistence level that staff was comfortable supporting. And if we're less than that, there will be impacts, as Sean mentioned. So I recommend approval, definitely, from the public works staff perspective.
All right, thank you, Matthew. We'll go ahead and bring it back up here for any comments, questions, or action. Anyone?
Oh, thanks for letting me go first. Okay, so I'm not going to reiterate everything I said last time. Those of you who are here, or you listen, I do want to reiterate that this is not something that we take lightly. Have listened to every single comment, every single concern. And if you heard me last time, you know I shared those with you. We have to pay these rate increases as well. One of the residents online said that, she keeps mentioning the city's mission statement, to provide the best service for the residents. Well, that's absolutely true. And that's what we're trying to do here. It would be really easy. It would be really easy to say, yeah, I'm not going to vote for this and be the hero, right? And to, get off the hot seat. That would be really easy. But when I got elected the first time, my philosophy is I cannot be so worried about making people mad or getting reelected that I'm not doing my job. And so if we step back from this and say, well, it's just too much right now, and we're going to kick the can down the road again, which is some of the problems that we've had in the past, then I wouldn't be doing my job. And so we've heard threats of you're put on notice and all these things. Okay, well, I can take that. I would not be able to live with myself if I stepped back from this and said, well, I'm just not going to vote for it because it's too much. When, as Sean so eloquently just stated again for the 100th time, and I do apologize to those of you who say this is the first I've heard of it, but as he said, and we've been saying, we have tried to communicate in the best possible way. So if anybody has any other suggestions other than doing community outreaches and putting it on our website and putting it on the e-bulletin and sending it to people email and mailing you information and including social media. Someone made a comment that we shouldn't be, communicating through social media. That's just one way. If you have another solution or another recommendation, we would honestly love to hear it, because we have pushed it out in every form possible as many times as we could. And so we take that very seriously as well. And I want to speak to, and I alluded to this last time, some of the comments about, well, you know, Lincoln does have a history and grand jury reports and all of that. Well, that is true. But if you have paid attention at all in the last 5 years, every one of those issues has been addressed and cleaned up and fixed. This issue that we're dealing with right here is really the last serious fix that we have to do, other than just maintaining and, you know, running a city. There's always stuff, but this is the last real serious thing that we have to take. And a lot of you forget that someone mentioned, you know, well, I haven't had a real rate increase in a long time and our rates have been really low. Well, that's exactly the point. If you look back at your rates for the last, you know, several years, Lincoln has been the very lowest in the whole region. And it's been great. It's been nice. But that wasn't the right way to handle it. And we've already explained all the multiple reasons why it didn't get done before, but now we have to. And even if we had increased it a little bit at a little bit, we'd still be at this same point. Because as Matthew said, we have infrastructure that needs to be replaced. We can't just hope that nothing happens, because sure as the world, something's going to happen. And we have to make sure you have pipes that carry your water, and we have pipes that take care of your waste, and you have trucks that come pick up your garbage. And so, yes, our mission statement is to provide the best service that we possibly can. And that's why when we are elected to this position here, sometimes we have to make really, really hard choices. And I'll say it again, this sucks. This is hard. I don't like this. And it would be easy to be the hero and step back and go, nope, I'm not doing this. But that would be worse. Because as Sean said, and we've been saying, between 18 and 24, 30 months, these individual utility funds would go bankrupt. And then what are we going to do? Then you're going to be right back here yelling at us about why we don't have water, why we don't have sewer service, or we've had to cut police and fire. And we're going to go right back to where we were before, where people yelling that we don't have enough firefighters. So what is the solution? The solution is, this is the solution. I promise you, if there was another way, we would do it. We would do it in a heartbeat. And so our goal is to provide you the best service possible. And we do care. And this is very difficult. It's been very difficult. And we've been working at this for a really long time. And it's one of those times where we have to bite the bullet. And so I understand the anger. I understand the frustration. I understand wanting to go back and dig up the past mistakes and go, see, you're doing it again. But we're not actually. We're actually facing the music and we're fixing the problem. And it's hard, but we're fixing the problem. And so I hear you, I understand, but there's no other way around it.
I agree with, well, with everything Holly said. The fact is that a no vote on this is putting, as far as I'm concerned, all of our primary services that we exist to provide, which is water, sewer, solid waste, police, fire, putting all of those at risk. Because if we don't attack and pay the penalty of this first huge increase, we're continuing the risk. We're kicking down the can down the road, and the staving off, if you will, the insolvency or the bankruptcy for maybe a few months. But we still will end up in the place of having to reduce our services so that they don't satisfy the needs of the community. So I don't, it's intuitively obvious that I have to vote yes on this, because I thought no vote is a path to disaster.
Ben, any comments? Maybe I'll go after Bill. Bill?
I think we should listen, as an elected member of the council, I think we need to listen to the residents. Okay, the residents have spoken, okay? I believe, one, this never should have been allowed to happen. Why, we're having 70, 80, 86% increases in our water rates? That's just beyond the pale. Okay, no, it's not doing something wrong by voting no. I think that's the most responsible thing you could. I think we should send this back to our staff, come up with some better solutions. We should be blaming, other people. I mean, last meeting I heard we were blaming the governor or the state legislature. That's wrong. That's just plain wrong. Okay, and we shouldn't be trying to scare the residents by saying we're going to lay off all the police or all the fire, or we're going to go bankrupt. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I'm sorry.
Folks, please.
I'm really sorry, Paul. That's just not going to happen. Okay, this should never have happened. Okay, several members of this council have been on the council for a long time, and you belong to those committees: the water committee, the solid waste committee, the wastewater committee. I don't. I mean, you should have known what was going on for the past few years, and not let it happen. I'm sorry. I just can't see voting for this thing. Sorry.
All right.
And that's not being irresponsible. I'm sorry.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My heart really breaks. I live in District 2 and I absolutely have no idea how I'm going to be able to pay these rates. I mean, you can do a raspberry if you like, but I mean, it's the truth. I mean, if you want to open up my finances, I can show you. I mean, I'm an open book for that, but I mean, it's absolutely the truth. I might have to be on that list to get help myself with 3 kids in high school and my wife, and we're both working. And as far as the whole, listen to the residents, that's why my heart breaks. That's why any father's heart would break when their child is pleading for something that you want to give them. Yet, in your heart, you can't, because you have to provide something else for them. And my heart breaks mostly because I want to be able to get that for my son or my child, but I know that I can't. When I say can't, meaning there's other sacrifices that end up having to be made, right? When you look at the finances of the way these are, Bill's absolutely right that, if we say no to this, that the funds have to come from somewhere. And then we'd have to look at the police officers or the firefighters, the 9 new firefighters we hired. And we need to say, hey, I'm sorry, too many of our residents can't afford to have you because we need to take care of some other rates. And then the firefighters aren't there to help pick up your husbands and get them back into bed, and the public safety aspect of it. So my heart absolutely breaks. And if I could see any other way around it, personally, I wanted to vote no. I hear everything you're saying, and inside I'm like, hey, Sean, what are the ramifications? Can we vote no and give it another? I mean, when's the drop dead date for us to figure out how to stretch it out? And I just can't get there. I really wish there was a better way. I hear you, I agree. And I wish there was a better way, but based on the information that I've received, not possible. That's it, Mayor.
All right. Each and every one of us has spent months looking at these numbers, looking for a better alternative, looking for something less impactful. Sean and his team have dug deep. They gave us an alternative that would stretch things out a little bit, give you a little less impact. But in the end, some of those funds would still go insolvent, even with a smaller increase. And I'm reminded of a line from a movie. This is the best bad plan we have. We could theoretically, Sean pointed out that if we were to reverse tonight and try to go back and send out more ballots, it would be starting the entire 218 process all over again with the expense of that, with the delay in the solution of that, and the impacts that would result from that delay. But in the end, staff has not found, just looking at the hard numbers, another path for us. They'd love to, and we'd love to see it. We put it out to the public. There are a lot of retired financial folks out there. We've asked, if you've got a better idea, please let us know. We want to take a hard look at that. And as Sean said, none have come forward. So we are in a position that none of us like. This is a very hard decision. We recognize how impactful it is on all of us, each and every one of us. But unfortunately, from all the data I've received, this is the right correction to make at this time. Failure to do so is only going to make things worse. And I wish I had better news. I wish that this felt better. It does not. Your staff has worked long and hard on this. You need to know that. And the council has as well. If we saw another alternative, we would grab at it. We simply don't. So I will stop my comments there and open it up to a motion if there is one. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll move that we waive full reading and adopt by title only ordinance 1064B, amending sections of the Title 8 and Title 13 of the municipal code, and further find that the ordinance is exempt from environmental review under CEQA. Period.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, Carl Skint, second, Andriana. With a
Yes.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Carl Skint,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen,
Without regret, no.
and Mayor Joyner.
Yes. Thank you all. That was a tough one. Appreciate it. Everybody good, or would you like to take a quick break? Why don't we go ahead and take 5-minute recess, yeah. We can all sit back down and we'll get back to our agenda. All right, we are back in session. Our next item is 8C, waive full reading and adopt by title only ordinance 1065B, amending the Lincoln Municipal Code.
Mayor, that's the consent.
Good.
Yeah.
Run.
Yep, thank you.
9H.
I love to give you guys an opportunity to set me straight.
Every meeting, right?
Every meeting. All right. Which one are we on? 9A.
9A.
All right. Public hearings. Conduct a public hearing and waive the first reading and adopt by title only an ordinance 1066B, repealing and replacing Lincoln Municipal Code, Chapter 9.40, regarding camping on both private and public property, and further finding the ordinance is exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Ms. Melankoff.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I will try to be brief. We, as you know, have had several opportunities to workshop this subject, most recently 2 weeks ago, where we received some public input. And I, in fact, took that public input and made a few minor revisions to the ordinance that it is presented before you tonight for the waive the first reading so that we can actually move forward with enacting our new ordinance. So as the council is very well aware, with the passage of the decision in Martin versus Boise, the cities across the Ninth Circuit, not just the state of California, have had substantive restrictions on our ability to enforce homeless camping ordinances that were previously on the books. So this draft, this ordinance that is proposed to you tonight is my best attempt to present to you a no camping ordinance that is compliant with Martin v. Boise and its progeny. The proposed revisions that were presented to the city council at the workshop included prohibiting placing any camping facilities or paraphernalia in the waterways, including ravines, ponds, sloughs, and lakes. So what we have seen, especially in the summer months, is we oftentimes find members of our homeless community, they'll put their chairs and tents and kind of right there in the water, and they end up getting swept down the ravine. And we have friends like Mr. Paul Boss, who dons his waders every Wednesday morning and is having to retrieve those from our waterways. So this would allow us to get ahead of that. And then also a requirement that any pets be leashed or crated at all times. So just to follow up a little bit, as we discussed last week, or 2 weeks ago, there are still other existing city ordinances and state laws that can be enforced in addition to this. So this is the proverbial stick in addition to the carrot to the homeless transitional housing project that Sean and I are working very fast toward. We've actually got a meeting tomorrow night with a member of our faith community that's intending to host 2 of these trailers, and we're going to be attending a community meeting and answering any questions that those individuals have. But just to also add, in addition to the code sections that are cited for existing ordinances, there's still the ability to cite individuals for nuisance under penal code. Chief, I think it's 397. Do I have those numbers right? 379,
Pop quiz,
397.
Chief.
I'd have to look that up.
There you
Okay.
go.
So that is an opportunity. There's also, we've had our fish and wildlife wardens down in the ravine, and also citing 4 sections related to basically loitering within 100 feet of a water line. I've also had communications with the district attorney that is responsible for the community court that has been stood up with our Placer County Superior Court. They meet and have hearings every first Friday, and she has committed to working with me in order to sort of incorporate our citation process into their community court so that individuals who are cited for our camping ordinance do face consequences that are rational and reasonably related to their needs. So whether that is getting them into service, getting them into programs, requiring that they go get their driver's license, that they sign up for Social Security, whatever those types of actions that are appropriate might be. We have a great partner there in the district attorney's office. So I was very excited to get that information. So with that, we had a very lengthy discussion 2 weeks ago regarding this ordinance. It's been vetted by the community, our homeless task force on several occasions. And so I would open it up to questions from council. This is a public hearing. And so I would ask that it go ahead and be open to the public for any testimony that might be necessary.
All right, go ahead and do that before coming to the council for any questions or comments. Public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, testify on this item, can do so at this time. Doesn't look like anyone in the room, anyone online.
No hands are raised, Mayor.
All right. I will close the public hearing, bring it back up here for any questions, comments, or an action. Sounded like I said inaction, a action.
I don't have any questions. I just really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. And I feel really encouraged that we are making significant progress on the homeless issue. And I really appreciate all the volunteers and I appreciate your work on this and Sean's and the faith-based community that's willing to come alongside. And I will just make a quick comment here. I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but I've had a couple interactions with people, another elected in our region and a resident, like totally different worlds come to me and say, hey, I heard you guys are building a shelter.
Yeah.
And I was like, where did that even come from? I have no idea. So squashed it real quickly, explained what we were doing. Like, oh, that sounds great. Okay. But anyway, all the work that you've done, I really appreciate it. And so I'm in favor. Yeah.
I can tell you offline where.
Yeah, sure. I would love to know that.
Ben?
I had an off the wall question. Where it says camping on both private and public property. Maybe this is really oddball,
I
but
saw that. No, I saw that too. And none of us want to prevent kids from camping out in the backyard. or
all
anything
right.
like that.
Or if relatives come and I say, no, you're not staying in my house, but you can camp on my lawn.
Your back
In the
lawn
back, yeah, back.
for a couple of days.
Sure. As long as that's good, I'm good with it.
Camping on private property is always available if it's with the consent of the property owner.
Perfect. That's.
I would suggest, however, given, homeowners associations and certain restrictions like that, it should probably be restricted to the rear or side yard behind a fence.
Yeah, or in my shed.
Make sure your relatives have it in writing.
Comment on the homeless, I still think the Campus of Hope is a better solution, but okay, we're going in a different direction. It's a decision.
So I agree, Christine, we've come so far, and a lot of that is due to your hard work. We were at a point of relative paralysis with Boise, thinking there was just nothing we could do to begin to address this problem. And with some softening in Boise and some talking with other agencies and finding new tools, I think we've come a very long way, and I think it's going to be reasonably impactful, reasonably fast, I think, for those who are truly seeking some type of assistance. It will be very fast. For those who want no assistance, it may cause them to choose to live the way they want to live somewhere else. It's a little easier.
Agreed. And I just have one quick story that I wanted to share with you. As you know, my code enforcement staff has been very actively involved with the Adopt a Creek team and also liaisoning with Lincoln Police Department and also probation. And we had an individual who would be very well known to you. He formerly had a very large RV parked behind the medical center, but he came to staff and said he was ready to go to his cousin's house. And so we have been, unfortunately, by the time he said he was ready to go to his cousin's house, his cousin had left on vacation. So we had a little bit of a hitch in the giddy up. So we've been in communication with him over the weekend and, trying to help keep him clean and sober so that we can get him to his cousin's house where he has a roof over his head and will have employment. And so it's those types of one-on-one personal connections when our teams are out there on a regular basis and connecting with these individuals that we find those small success stories.
So do we have follow-up paths for that? They've become housed, at least for a time. Do we have programs that continue to reach out and try to work with them.
We do. So this individual would actually be relocated to a different community. That's where his cousin lives. But we, of course, we've got our partners at the salt mine. We have our code enforcement staff that has developed relationships with these individuals that we will for certain be reaching out to them on our behalf to make sure that they're being successful, but then also connecting them to services in their new community as well.
Anything else from council? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move.
I'll
Motion
second.
Brown, second Andriata. Gwen, roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Andriata,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint, Councilmember Lauritsen,
Yes.
and Mayor Joyner.
Yes. We move on to general business. Item 10A, adopt resolution 2023-156, resolution designating the city of Lincoln's voting delegate and alternate to the League of California Cities Annual Conference. Gwen?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So the League of California Cities Annual Conference is scheduled for September 20 through the 22nd of 2023 at the Sacramento Convention Center. An important part of the conference is the annual business meeting in which the League's membership considers and takes action on resolutions that establish League policy. This year, there are no resolutions proposed, but there may be some that come up during the conference. So in order to vote on those, the city would need to provide a resolution stating who the city's delegates and alternates are. So with that, I'll leave it up to council to discuss and direct us.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess the first question is who's going?
I am.
You are going? Anyone else? Madam?
I plan on meeting.
You're going as well?
Going.
You are going? All right. So we need, I'm happy to do it. I've done it in the past. Always done it in the past. It's typically what it does, and it won't happen in Sacramento-ish. If you're in San Diego, if you're in Long Beach, chances are you're going to miss your flight home because you got to stay beyond the end of the conference. You're still going to be late if something comes up with this, but I'm happy to be the primary. Whoever wants. We need an alternate. Well, the alternate ought to be Ben if he's
If he
certain
actually
he's
is
going
gonna
to be there.
go.
I will be there.
Okay. We good with that? You need a second alternate? Or are we good with the two?
It's completely up to you if you think that,
I think
yeah.
we're all right.
I mean, I'm glad for you to be the alternate. We might need to pick a second just in
I
case
agree.
something happens.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
All right.
okay, I'm happy to do it. That's fine.
So primary, secondary, alternate.
Yeah.
Is that all right with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need an action on that? I guess we do.
Yes, there's a resolution.
All right. May I have a motion, please?
Okay, I move that we adopt resolution 2023-156, appointing Mayor Joyner as our city's delegate for voting, Councilmember Ben Brown as the secondary, and myself as the alternate if needed.
I'll second that.
Thank
Motion,
you.
Andriata, second Brown?
Yes, Councilmember Andriata.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint, Councilmember Lauritsen,
No.
and Mayor Joyner.
Yes. Item 10B, adopt resolution 2023-157, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement with William Jessup University for office space at Lincoln Regional Airport. Mr. Scully.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm super excited about this item. As you're aware, we were working on a number of initiatives to improve, revitalize, and develop the Lincoln Airport. We're provided that we get a chance to take a quick breath, we're going to have some new leases coming forward for council to consider. There's a lease RFP for hangar builds that's about to go out. If I get just another couple hours at my computer, I'm going to try to have it out this month or before the end of the month. And we've just been looking for partnerships and the restarting of the Lincoln Airport Commission or committee has been awesome. I will be honest with you, from a staff perspective, I was actually not super excited about it at first, but they've been really cool to work with. They know, I don't know anything about aviation aside from it's neat to look at, and I've flown on airplanes, but so it's been really great to have all of this kind of positive activity and just a overwhelming amount of people that not some, some are looking for economic opportunity and others just want to see a more vibrant airport. So it's slow going, but we're making progress. One of the cool opportunities has been that actually I have to thank Treasurer Pearl for this. Treasurer Pearl was approached by Colonel Liu, who is the director of the aviation program at William Jessup University, and is an awesome a gentleman with a very interesting background. And someday I'm sure, I think if you're going to the airport open house Saturday, I'm sure he'll be there with a booth. Anyway, we got to talking. I went over to William Jessup and we met and had lunch, and the three of us spoke about whether there's any partnership opportunities, and it kind of just started as a generalized discussion. And then we all met out at the airport and walked through what we call our airport lounge area. And
Not a lot of lounging going on there.
yeah, a couple double wides, really. And but the thing that's really great about Colonel Liu is he looks at it as an opportunity. And so we have an extra office out there that's really just being used for a little bit of storage right now. And he said, hey, what if we worked out a deal where we leased this from you so that we could hold some of our aviation classes here on the airport? Right now, what they're doing is they're holding their classes and they're driving up to Auburn, and they're using the planes up there and flying out of that airport. And I'm told that airport is a little bit more of a challenging airport for a beginner. And
Or a veteran.
yeah, or a veteran. Okay. And not only that, it's farther. So he said, this just makes a lot of sense for us. And as he got out there, there was a million ideas that we discussed about ways that this could expand, but he wanted to start small. This is a small program right now, but he's working on a series of FAA grants to expand it. They're getting a lot of interest from students that want to become commercial pilots or former military folks that want to get their commercial licenses. And so he's expecting the program to grow. Anyway, a lot of to tell you that they're looking to rent a really small office from us. And so I put together a really simple lease, $250 a month while they're using it for a 5-year term. They can leave anytime, essentially with 30 days. And so can we. I don't get the sense that that's going to happen. I think they're going to get in there. They're going to set up a flight simulator in that room, and they're going to do their kind of pre-flight discussions. And then the idea in the short term is to have some of their airplanes that they use for training there to go out and fly. And the longer term goal is that they're actually going to purchase, they hope, some aircraft for William Jessup University through some FAA grants and have branded out there. And maybe we end up becoming sort of their airport that they operate out of. So it's maybe a start, but it's one opportunity. I don't think about the lease revenue as anything that's going to move the needle in any way, but they will be buying fuel from us. And so that's sort of our goal. Everything we talk about at the airport always goes back to fuel sales, because that's the only way that it's going to be financially sustainable. So I recommend approval of it. And there's one other little component I think I added into the staff report that they've agreed once a year. And I'm sure they'll do it more than that, to do kind of an open house where they allow the youth from the community to come in and take a look at the flight simulator and learn a little bit about aviation, and at no cost. So we'll probably connect with Western Placer and see if they want to recommend some classes come down.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Okay. Any questions from the public on this item?
We do have one on Zoom, Mayor. Melanie, please go ahead.
Yes, I think this is a very exciting partnership and great to see some economic activity out there at the airport. I'm hearing the term students and maybe bringing young children out to be in this educational environment out at the airport. My question is to Mayor Joyner. Is this building and will these kids and these young people that are on the airport land be in the flight path? Or whatever the term is, the line of flight that is of such concern that you've mentioned before?
This is William Jessup University. So these will be older students. These will not be children.
Except for the Western Placer kids, which aren't university students.
We have the treasurer wanting to jump up and respond to this. Richard knows more about this program and the airport, frankly, than I think any of us. So Richard, if you would, please. Mike's not hot.
That's on now? Okay, that's good. Okay, good. So William Jessup University has what's known as a Part 141 school. It's a very highly regarded educational certification to train pilots. So this is the William Jessup University students. They're going to be doubling their capacity this next year. They are providing a full range of aviation services, from flight education to all different types of other educational components within the aviation. So when they're flying, they're actually flight students under the control of certified flight instructors. And so they're going to be flying out here. And as Sean indicated, they're going to be buying fuel here. I suspect they're going to be the lease cost is going to be far exceeded by the amount of avgas that we'll be sending them. Yeah, but these are full flight students, just like any other place. So yeah, it's a great deal.
And the class will be relatively small to begin with.
The classes will be relatively small. They'll be out there typically on Friday and Saturdays.
And I think the question that Melanie was asking was actually related to the concern about assembly uses. And the area that was identified that we've been discussing related to potential recreation north of the airport is more in line with the flight path plan. And this building is literally, I don't know, maybe less than 20 feet from the sidewalk on Flightline Drive. So, the answer is no.
Yeah, and I think I think the issue she was really reaching for was, we had talked about a potential use for one of the city-owned buildings as an indoor sports complex. I had brought up that the challenge with that is the density and intensity created by that and the risk that puts those youth under. This is a very different situation.
In addition to that, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with it, but we also are still working on flipping the flight plan, the approach pattern, which would change a lot of that discussion anyway, but we could talk about that another
I would
time.
change that dramatically. All right. Anyone else? Glenn?
Interesting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. I'll go ahead and accept a motion then.
I move approval of resolution 2023-157.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion Andriotta, second Brown. Gwen?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Andriotta,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint, Councilmember Lauritsen, and Mayor Joyner.
Yes. On to 10C, adopt a resolution 2023-158, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement with the William Jessup University for a softball field for use at Foskett Park in the amount of $15,000 annually for a 3-year term with the option to extend for one additional 2-year term. Mr. Scully.
Thank you very much. So we didn't plan to have both of these William Jessup items on at the same night, but it just happened that way because they're getting back to school. And frankly, we've been talking about this for months, and I want to make sure we try to get them done before their students are getting fully back in their programs. But as council's probably aware, we have hosted and collaborated with William Jessup University and their collegiate baseball program at McBean Park for many years, and they've been a significant financial contributor and investor in that stadium for some time. And we've, over time, in addition with the university, have explored and entered into a number of other agreements and partnerships related to oak tree preservation, and we're looking into a business incubator project. The Economic Development Committee is doing that right now, and then obviously the flight school. One of the things that was raised to me by Brandon Bowling, who is I'm going to make sure I get his title correct. He was the associate athletic director. I believe now he is the deputy director of athletics at William Jessup, and he's also the chamber president. Mentioned to me is that for a long time, we also have not really hosted, but we've rented our fields to the women's softball program at William Jessup at one of our fields at Foskett. But it's really been sort of more of a traditional rental, like we would rent to a travel team even. And so it's subject to scheduling issues, and we run into, it just is, it's very messy because that is a super highly used area there at Foskett. And so there were two issues brought up. One was just strictly operational, which that it would be less complex from an administrative perspective if we just had a license with William Jessup for the women's softball at Foskett, because it eliminates our need to figure out exactly how many hours they use the lights and charge them for, per hour for that, and X number of hours on the field. It would just be much more simple if we generally know how many games they're going to play in a season. It's about the same every year. We are their home stadium, and we just simply calculate what that total amount is. The ask, if there was one, was that for the time that they're going to be in season, they wanted to have exclusive use of that field so that they could maintain it themselves, make sure that it's up to collegiate level standards. You're not going to have, and I'm not talking about any other particularly, but you're not having a travel league come in and destroy the mound, and then they have to, rush to, repack it before the game. And it's just complex. And so I worked with Doug Brown and Scott Boynton on this to make sure that we kind of cover all of our bases. But basically the way we set it up was for 9 months or for a certain number of months per year when they're in season, they will have exclusive use. And so the question that council would probably want to know is, well, okay, Sean, but we rent during that time, so aren't we going to lose revenue? Well, they're going to pay it. We basically ran some reports through finance about what our average amount we receive during those periods for rentals are, and they're simply just going to pay us the total amount. And now if they decide during those periods of time that we'll sub rent out to, Little League or whoever, that's their, right to do. And we've kind of worked in some language into the agreement that allow them to do that. It's a 3-year term, option to extend for additional 2 years. This is related to Foskett Softball Field 4 from January 1st until the Friday before Memorial Day. Doug one of the first questions I asked Doug is, can you satisfy your demand on the other 3 fields if you can't use the one? And the answer is yes. In fact, some ways it makes it easier. He's been trying to get away from booking as many travel teams in and really do our best to focus only on satisfying the Lincoln area leagues that need him the most. And then if there's extra here and there, we could make an extra couple $1,000s because no one hasn't rented for a Saturday, that he'll do that. So, and he manages it very well. So the license fee of the $15,000 includes all of that. They are also going to potentially get fee rebates for up to $750 per field if they'd like they're going to do some additional work or additional investments into the field. They'll be prearranged through Scott and Doug. And if they feel like the investment is significant enough, then they can get some small rebate. And then if there's certain improvements that we want to do, we've built in some language that allows us to do some cost sharing on that as well. The only other differences you should be aware of that might hopefully not shock anyone is there's some really strict maintenance guidelines for both parties. So what we're responsible for and what we're not, so meaning what they are. So for example, we don't want them messing with our irrigation. It's complex. Scott's team knows how to do it. They're probably not interested in us working the mound and doing a lot of that kind of field prep line work. So that worked out. There's going to be some signage guidelines because they're going during those times when they're in season. They're going to want to sell some, advertising to pay for the $15,000 per year they're paying us. And so we made sure that signage was going to be appropriate. You're not going to see like Bob's Cannabis Dispensary or whatever, at Foskett Ranch. It might be upsetting for some people. And then they're going to provide 4 to 6 hours of camp instruction by these collegiate softball players at no cost to Lincoln girls softball participants twice annually. In addition to that, there's one other little section that might just go miss, but one of the problems that we have sometimes is that when the community center is being used for a variety of other purposes, we use it for all kinds of things. We're having trouble finding space, especially when Western Placer is in session, to have open gym. And so we've worked out a deal with Brandon where he's going to allow us to use William Jessup's basketball gyms for open gym, on a periodic basis if we pre-schedule it, which is really cool because if you've ever been there, they have way nicer gyms than, than we do. So it's just a really nice little extra thing. And for me, the last thing I'll mention is I just think it's super important because I think that it doesn't say the right thing that we have a license agreement for the men's team in Lincoln and have never done the same thing for the women's softball program. So we recommend approval and happy to answer questions.
Questions from the council?
I just have one. Will they pay the 15,000 upfront or are they going to spread it out over the season?
I think it's paid at the beginning of the term year.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any member of the public wishing to comment on this? Thumbs up? Good. Anyone online, Gwen?
No one's online. Brandon is on, not sure.
Brandon, did you want to make a comment?
Everybody got me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I wasn't planning to talk tonight, but okay. Sounds great. Great to have this on for all of you tonight. Yeah, like Sean said, this is a kind of a monumental thing for us at the university as we continue to grow, we continue to expand. The movement into Division II, there's definitely an equity perspective that we want to look at in servicing our female student athletes. The relationship with the city of Lincoln has been fantastic since we've built this partnership. And it's amazing to think back that this started 2016 with a college baseball team. So with that being said, we've worked tirelessly in the department to put ourselves in a position to build and foster this relationship with the city. And at the same time, we want to, just like when we received the key to the city for our baseball program, we want to bring the ladies into that position and have a key to the city there for our softball program. And I think that is very doable in regard to the success that we're having. So with that being said, I didn't plan to speak. Sean did a great job. We've been working our tails off on this and we want to be in Lincoln as long as we possibly can. And we prefer not to look at building a stadium. We prefer to have our teams in that community because we love Lincoln and Lincoln has shown the same back to us. So that's really all I have.
That's great, Brandon. Thank you. I agree with you. The partnerships we've been able to build and continue to build. I've honestly never seen anything quite like it. So really proud of that and our continuing partnerships moving forward. And offline, we can talk about some ideas I have about other ways we can partner and maybe bring some of your students into the community. I've got a old city hall with 2 floors worth of vacant space that could be well utilized by your university. All right, with that, I'll go ahead and accept a motion.
Well, before we do that, I would like to say that, this is exciting because with the baseball team and just, we talked about the relationship between the women's volleyball and Sun City water volleyball. They just love those girls and their address is Rockland, but they really belong to us. And I'm wondering if there's any way that we can just draw a line and annex them into the city limits. So, yes, just make a little island.
Like a sports annexation?
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and make the motion. What are we on here? 10C, thank you. Resolution 2023-15A.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion Andreotta, second Brown.
Thank you. Councilmember Andriotta?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown? Councilmember Carl Skint?
Yeah, my equity vote. Yes.
Councilmember Lauritsen? And Mayor Joyner?
Yes. Moving on to item 10D, consider adoption of the 2023 through 2028 Lincoln Economic Action Plan and direct the Economic Development Committee to move forward in concert with the city manager and oversight by the city council with implementation of the initiatives identified in the Lincoln Economic Action Plan. Mr. Scully.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So as we've talked about just a couple items ago, we're pretty fortunate to have a number of commissions and committees that work on a number of important functions here in Lincoln, whether it be Planning Commission, Economic Development, Parks and Rec, Library Advisory Board, Chamber, City DLA Committee, Loan Committee. The big deal here is that, and I can tell you this because I have the benefit of a little bit of perspective, having worked a few different places. It's really hard most places to get people to volunteer to participate in committees. It's hard, or even show up, even if they're not on them. And for whatever reason, we have a pretty vibrant group of people that get involved in those various things that they're really interested in. There's rarely a committee that I show up to that no one sat, or that we just can't hold because no one's going to show. Every so often, maybe we don't have a quorum, but for the most part, we're pretty busy. And one of the most busy ones is economic development. In May, the EDC held 2 goal-setting sessions to review the progress that we made on the first action plan and lay out priorities for the coming year. We had a discussion. The session and detailed feedback sort of updated the plan that you have in your agenda packet, which will take us through 2028. I think the idea is that every year we do an update and we check the things off that we got completed. And, I don't think it's necessary to go through, but suffice to say that the downtown plan and grant, the interest that we've recently had from a couple different industrial users out at the industrial area off of Flightline, some of the airport projects, a lot of them have had their beginnings at the EDC. There are just a lot of really great folks that are super passionate about it. And it's almost difficult because it's hard to stick to one thing because there's so many things that they want to address. So this is an attempt to try to focus those efforts. The major changes to the previously approved plan include deferring to the Airport Commission on matters that relate to the operation and future development of the airport. So they're no longer going to spend a bunch of time on that, and they're going to allow the airport to focus their efforts there, Airport Committee. They're going to add the development of city-owned property adjacent to the airport as a priority for attracting new businesses. That's really our most important opportunity. And we're adding a study of a current study of our supply of parking for downtown businesses and special events to determine the need for better parking management, signage, opportunities for increasing the availability of parking. It's nonstop discussion all the time, and we never seem to have it with the benefit of data. So it's we have a lot of some surveys, but I think like what they're trying to get is what does the downtown parking situation look like today, and what is our best opportunities to address the perceived issues or the real ones. Some of the accomplishments over the past year, just real quick, the Lincoln Hotel Incentive Program, our SACOG Green Means Go grant, the marketing information for the city-owned property adjacent to the municipal airport, and participation in the formulation of a regional plan for the allocation of funds from the state's Community Economic Resilience Fund, SURF. And one of the things that you'll see in the document is we just had a really great discussion about trying to put together an application to go into the SURF program to develop a new program that hopefully will serve some of the strategic plan. So I think it's really good work. It's hard to do because it's very vague sometimes, but the commission works really well together. We've got a couple members here tonight, and then I know the vice chair of the committee is on Zoom, so I'll just sort of leave it there and answer any questions, and then maybe they would like to add. So thank you.
All right, questions from the council?
No questions. I just want to make the comment that I think this is probably the most productive EDC committee that we've had in a really long time. We've got some really talented people there and they are doing a lot of work, a lot of good work, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. We've managed to, in 2 iterations now, the committee have 1 or 2 individuals that are driving forces in that, which is hard to come by. It's often said that I'd rather have a racehorse that I have to rein in than one I have to spur on. And we've had a couple of racehorses that we, I won't say have to rein in, but this is focusing their attention on certain areas. And we've got some folks that are assisting those individuals to flesh out the information they have for the rest of the committee and move those forward. So really appreciative of the good work they're doing. And I think this is reflective of that. Holly and I both sit in on that committee, so we're familiar with what's going on, but if any of the 3 of you have questions, or I think you've seen this report before, it's just being updated. Okay, good. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Anyone online?
No hands are, oh, sorry, Joanne's hand just went up. Go ahead, Joanne. Joanne, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, good-
There you go.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, good evening. The only thing I wanted to add, I think we are doing some very productive work, but I would like to remind you that there was at the strategic planning sessions, the workshop, there was an agreement that we would be looking for an EDC director, which I do think believe, despite all of our committee successes, we really do need that in our city. And the sooner we could get one, that would be wonderful. There's a lot of work that could be done by that person. So just another reminder. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Joanne. Anyone else? Right? And we'll bring it back up here for a motion, please.
I move to adopt 10D, consider adopting the 2023-2028 Lincoln Economic Action Plan. Direct the Economic Development Committee to move forward in concert with the city manager and oversight by the city council with implementation of the initiatives identified in the Lincoln Economic Action Plan.
Motion Brown, second Andriana.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Andriotta.
Yes.
Councilmember Carl Skint. Councilmember Lauritsen.
Yeah.
And Mayor Joyner.
Yes. And finally, item 10E, consider staff's report and analysis on the procurement portion of Senate Bill 1383 and provide staff with direction on how to proceed forward with compliance. Angela. We're all a little tired and a
I
little
know.
punchy, so.
Sorry to make you go last.
No, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Angela Frost, Environmental Services Manager. Also with me this evening is Kirsten Kolpicki, Legislative and Regulatory Manager with Pioneer Energy. And I just want to thank her for being here this evening
Making
and
her go
also
last.
for being so patient,
Yes.
I know, with this last item. And thank you as well. So tonight we're here to discuss Senate Bill 1383 procurement compliance. We're going to have some options for your consideration, have some discussion, and hopefully get some direction. So just a refresher on the SB 1383 procurement requirements. Beginning in January of 2022, all jurisdictions received an annual procurement target of a certain amount of recovered organic waste products that they had to procure annually. Lincoln's full target is 3,970 tons, and this is based on population figures as of 2021. That has since been phased over a 3-year period. So this year, we only have to meet 30% of that target, and in 2024, 65%, and in 2025 and thereafter, 100%. There are 4 types of organic waste products
that comply with Senate Bill 1383. And those include compost, mulch, renewable energy from anaerobic digestion, and electricity produced from biomass compliant feedstock. So this evening, we have some options for your consideration. One of these, the first one is still in flux and in development. So we're open to feedback and I will elaborate more in detail. But three options are: one, a regional partnership with FCC Environmental Services. Option two, a biomass credit agreement with Greenleaf that would be administered through Pioneer Energy. And option three, which would be a combined approach of the two options. So with that, I will jump into option one, which is a partnership with FCC. So FCC Environmental Services is the current operator of the Western Placer Waste Management Authority's Material Recovery Facility, also known as the MRF, and our regional landfill. FCC sells roughly 40 to 60,000 tons of compost every year. And they have agreed to help us meet our regional procurement target through their compost sales. And how they would do this is there is a direct service provider form and that we've been working on where we would issue that to anyone that's purchasing the compost. And if they elect to fill out this form, they can become a direct service provider, and whatever amount of compost they purchase would then get credited to the jurisdictions that are involved in this program. We're looking into, currently there've been a lot of broker sales on compost, but we're also seeking farmers, local farmers, and other ways of getting that compost. So it's something new, not something that we've already done. Additionally, FCC could act as a direct service provider by using compost on site for infill and erosion control. And they have also agreed to help with the record keeping and tracking for this compliance effort. And so essentially what they're doing would be of zero cost to us because it's something that they're currently doing. And just to be a good helper of this program and to help serve the member agencies of the authority, this is something they're willing to do. So we have started this program so we have some compliance efforts that we can show CalRecycle. And as of last week, we have over 7 direct service provider forms received, and we've sold over 6,100 tons of compost. This program didn't start till the end of June. So that's all that we've achieved in such a short period of time. So as you can see on this chart, what I did here was put the member agencies, I think I have a pointer, right here, that it wasn't quite helpful, but we have the member agencies listed, their population, this works much better, the full tonnage requirements and 30% requirement. However, compost is weighted much differently. It's a little more than half, so 0.58 per ton. So we don't have to procure as much. So you can see the reduction. The member agency's target is a little over 5,000 tons. And we're at 6,100. So this is a very viable strategy, very achievable. Even when you look into 2024 requirements and 2025, we're selling over 60,000 tons annually. So this is something that is achievable. And with that, I will turn it over to Kirsten Kolpicki for option 2.
So we had our board members from Pioneer Community Energy approach us about the onerous requirements of SB 1383 and particularly this organic waste procurement requirement. And one of the eligible pathways is biomass. And generally speaking, the board has been very supportive of efforts to procure biomass, especially given our vicinity to wildfire and the need to manage our forests. So we looked into it. Greenleaf had done a presentation in conjunction with CalRecycle. They are a biomass power facility in the Inland Empire, and they are approximately 45 megawatt facility. They have already sold their energy, so it wouldn't be a procurement of their energy. It would be a procurement of the eligible feedstock that is then used in the biomass facility to generate that energy. So in the Inland Empire, instead of maybe using agricultural waste or maybe some residual forest waste. There's not a whole lot of forestry in Southern California. They have partnered with local landfills to take urban wood waste out of the landfill directly and burn that. And in this case, it's sort of like a carbon credit, if you will, in order to comply. Next slide. So what does Pioneer have to do with this? So we're not making any money off this. This isn't something that fits into our regular model of how we do business with regards to procuring energy, but this is something that our members came to us and asked for assistance with. And so it's a model we pursued, and we're basically making it available to our member agencies. Pioneer Community makes zero money on this. We're just doing it as partners with our local jurisdictions. The terms and conditions of the final agreement are up to each local jurisdiction. We did negotiate a template contract with Greenleaf Power, and the contract would be between you and Greenleaf, not with the city and Pioneer Community Energy. But what we were able to do by negotiating the contract is sort of get Costco pricing, if you will. So if we sell a certain amount, if people procure a certain amount of attributes, the pricing goes down annually as opposed to just a flat $32.50, which is originally what Greenleaf Power was selling it for. Next slide. So this is sort of a slide that shows all the jurisdictions that so far have, with the exception of Lincoln, which we're here tonight, we've made presentations at all the jurisdictions that were interested. These are the jurisdictions so far that have expressed interest and have moved forward with a contract with Greenleaf. As staff mentioned, compost has a certain formula that is 0.58% of the whole target. In biomass, it's 650 kilowatts per ton. And the reason why I have 2022 energy usage is that there is a prohibition on jurisdictions from procuring more biomass attributes than the jurisdiction has used in its municipality. So that's just there as a guidance. And as it shows in 2023, the procurement target is 1,191 at a price of $30.25, which assumes tier 2 pricing, which is an improved pricing. And it would cost $36,028 for the city of Lincoln. Next slide. Okay, and so this is basically the same slide, but again, 2024 targets. The pricing moves to $31.16. The price is $80,424. And again, assumes the tier 2 improved pricing. Next slide. And this is 2025, where the target moves up to 3,970 tons, which is a large target for all the jurisdictions that we've heard from. No one's saying like this is easy peasy to comply with. Next slide. So we did a little bit of cost comparison. So again, Greenleaf Power is offering $13.83, compliant biomass attributes for $30.25 per ton in 2023. Lincoln's estimated target is 1,191 tons. The total estimated cost for Lincoln is $36,028. We incurred general counsel costs estimated at $10,000, which would be divided among all the jurisdictions that are participating. So we're estimating around $1,400 per jurisdiction for the contracting. And when we compared it to the purchase of compost from Western Placer Waste Management, we were quoted $21 a ton for SB 1383 compliant compost, and multiplied by the factor for compost, which reduces the target. It's a target of 691 tons and a cost of $14,511. And then there's the issue of trucking. 24-ton truck for 12 miles is the distance between Watma and I think it was, the city of Rockland, but Lincoln is 8 miles, so the cost would be less. It would take 29 trips approximately to haul that 691 tons at $300 a trip for a total of $8,700, with a total estimated cost for Lincoln at $23,211. Plus Lincoln would also have to figure out what to do with all those tons of compost. And I think something to mention is that there's a lot of flexibility in the contract. This isn't all or nothing. You have to procure biomass or you have to procure option one. There's nothing in the contract that says you couldn't procure 30%, 40%, 50%, whatever, in terms of the Greenleaf contract. And one of the nice things about this option is that we religiously met with Cal Recycle to make sure that this model meets their requirements in terms of compliance. And so one of the things the council may want to think about is diluting your risk in terms of making sure that if the other one isn't officially confirmed by Cal Recycle as a legitimate way to comply and putting yourself at risk of fines, that you may want to dilute that risk and do a little bit of each. Next slide. So what does 50 tons of compost look like? I mean, it's pretty overwhelming. It's not, I don't think people have an idea of how many tons of compost that is. So that's just 50 tons. And again, I think your target was 1,191. Yeah, next slide. Considerations. So the price of compost and mulch vary wildly. So this option that we're providing is simply an option. It doesn't work for everyone. And you guys may, it appears that you have a cheaper option. And beginning in January 1, 2027, jurisdictions populations are going to be recalculated and your target's going to be reassessed. So that target may go up or down based upon your population changes. And if you have SB 1383 local assistant grant money, that would be eligible to be used for the procurement of the biomass attributes. And finally, each jurisdiction should conduct their own fiscal analysis to determine the best option for them. Next slide. So we found out that Greenleaf had received a notice of violation. And as soon as we found out, we were concerned because we didn't want to recommend to our local jurisdiction something that was not a partner that we would want to partner with, nor would you want to partner with, but we also want to make sure that the path that we're suggesting is still viable with Cal Recycle. So Greenleaf believes strongly that the ongoing discussions with EPA will significantly reduce or eliminate the alleged exceedances. And Cal Recycle indicated that they don't have any regulatory oversight over this biomass power plant regarding this type of notice of violation. So it would not impact the solution in terms of attributes for compliance. Next slide. Negotiated provisions. So Greenleaf expects a minimum of 3 years for a contract and prefers 5 years, but I think the jurisdictions from Pioneer Community Energy that participated opted for 3 years, which allows local jurisdictions to see what is viable and what is working, and will they be able to procure 65%, 100% of their target, and then make decisions going forward on how they want to do this. Again, 3 tiers of pricing based upon the volume that jurisdictions, the number of jurisdictions that participate. Attorney fees are shared equally amongst the jurisdiction. It's up to you guys to negotiate final provisions in the contract. Jurisdictions were expected to enter in a contract with Greenleaf by July 31st, 2023. So, but Greenleaf has agreed to extend the deadline for Lincoln and Lincoln only. So you're the last jurisdiction to act on this. Next slide. I think that.
Thank you, Kirsten. And the third option would be a combination of option 1 and looking at maybe 50% of option 2. So we would still work with FCC on the compost sales effort and program, but then maybe consider half of the agreement, purchasing half the attributes offered through Greenleaf. And that cost would, over a 3-year period, would be about $122,000. I'll just share staff's recommendation that staff's recommendation is for option 1, the partnership with FCC, because it currently meets and forecasts to meet the regional procurement targets. It's cost effective. It keeps the solution local. And we're willing to work with Cal Recycle and keep this, this cost minimal and find a solution that we can all work together on, work with the authority and with FCC. And with that, any questions? And open to discussion.
I would like to make a comment In talking with both the public works directors from the county, city of Rockland, city of Roseville, the WAPMA member agencies are not, if you notice the list of people that have signed up, those jurisdictions are not on the list. And that's because in meeting with the TAG, we do feel like we're going to come up with an innovative local solution. And whether or not the direct service provider is accepted by CalRecycle, we're committed to figure out a local solution.
Appreciate that. It's useful. Any member of the council have questions?
Question. First of all, thank you, Angela and Kirsten. Appreciate that. My question is, if we go with option one, you said you will work with CalRecycle, but is this an option that they'll actually approve and not fine us for being out of compliance? I mean, do you feel confident that they're gonna go along with this?
Yeah, from what I've heard, currently FCC works with brokers on the sale of compost, and going to directly work with farmers is something that would be a new concept that they haven't had. And so we're hopeful that that's a new program that could be considered as something different than what we're currently doing. And also with FCC being a direct service provider themselves and using the compost on site, that is something new that would be counted towards our procurement target.
Okay, and then my other question is, so if Rockland and Roseville are doing the same thing that we are, if they do, but we're option one, won't, because I heard Rockland's comment too, that they were looking at the farmers. How much competition is that going to be for us to all find enough farmers to get rid of all this stuff? That seems like a problem for me.
Right, that's a great point. And that is a concern that there could be an abundance of compost and we may not be able to sell. At this point, it looks good, but it's not a guarantee for the future years to come to see if that is something that we could sell. And so that was noted as a concern in the staff report.
Okay, so staff doesn't think that option three, doing a combination, might be a safer way to go to keep us out of trouble? I mean, I totally get the cost effective. I totally get that, oh, this is free right now, but if we find ourselves in a place where we can't be compliant, then that's going to cost us more money. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Right. So we had preferred option one, but this is definitely not end all be all decision. This is something that we're going to keep evaluating and reevaluate. And if the circumstances change and compost is not a good solution for the city, then we need to choose a different path, and we'll come back to council with different options for consideration.
And at the public works director level, we are committed to finding a solution that's a local solution and not procuring biomass fuel for electrical utility that's out of the area. We do understand that option three, there is definitely an opportunity to mitigate risk there, for sure. We're not saying there isn't. So that's why we're making recommendation and not the decision. Option three certainly would mitigate some risk in that formula.
Jen, you got something?
Couple of questions. How many of the jurisdictions have elected to do the green leaf? You say we're the last ones.
Yeah. So it was everyone on that list except for Lincoln at this point.
Correct. Those
Eldorado
jurisdictions-
County,
and-
Nevada County, Auburn, Colfax.
Correct. And Roseville isn't in our service territory, so this wasn't something that was presented to the city of Roseville because they have their own. So that wasn't on the table. A couple of the jurisdictions that opted not to participate. For example, Eldorado County did a 50-50. They are working with another waste facility. They are procuring the compost that they need to at 50% of their requirement, and then having a location where residents can come pick up that compost for free. And the concept of SB 1383, which is not popular in any jurisdiction I've been to, is to generate a market for these otherwise not really viable products. And so CalRecycle has been very cagey, in my opinion, in terms of letting people know, hey, that's a great idea, or that's never going to fly. They want to wait and let jurisdictions, in my opinion, hang themselves. And there's going to be a lot of gotcha moments, but one of the easiest ones that's going to be able to review is this organic waste procurement requirement. You know, are you going to be able to, as you raised the question, are you going to be able to show that this compost wasn't sold to any other jurisdiction, that it was only sold once, and those compliance requirements? And so I think it's possible that CalRecycle is going to be very forgiving in 2023, but as this ratchets up in 2024 and 2025, maybe not so much, Mr. Nice Guy. And one of the things that obviously we can't do is we can't guarantee the availability of these attributes after, and the pricing that we were able to get. Now, I would assume that maybe it's still a viable option after the fact, maybe just maybe not at the same pricing.
The second question is how much is WAPMA going to use for ADC, for ground cover, for sucking up water? How many tons per year do they estimate? Does FCC estimate they themselves are going to use?
I don't have those exact numbers offhand, but I can get them for you.
Well, can you give me an idea?
I know that they were, are you talking about the infill plan and erosion control percentage?
Their use of the product.
Their use, I don't have exact percentages. I know that that's something that they were considering to use, which would be in addition to the 6,100 tons that we have through DSP forms. But that is something I can look into.
Well, yeah, the number I was looking for is, are they going to use 30,000 tons a year internally, in which case we don't got no problem. Right? They make it, use it. We get credit. So, do you have any idea, Matt?
He's punching numbers.
Well, I'm looking at my tag notes and I don't believe I have it. But I do believe it was a significant portion, but not enough to achieve compliance alone. But it was definitely substantial. They, as they use the erosion
Make it
control
organic.
So
material
we're
on site.
not being asked to make a decision tonight, only to give direction. So if when you have those numbers, if you could get them out to us, that would be useful.
Kristen, how, oh, I'm sorry.
That, if they would come close, that adds a lot of safety to option one. At no cost, option one is obviously the right solution. So that's, you know, whether you need to hedge it because the numbers aren't high enough. But we can't, I couldn't make a decision about
Without knowing that.
having.
How long is Greenleaf willing to extend for Lincoln to wait for us to make a decision? No.
We were supposed to be at the last jurisdiction meeting when you guys.
Okay.
It was our understanding that it was.
We were gonna decide tonight, yeah. Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Bill, any questions? Okay. I don't think I've made any secret of it. I do not like Senate Bill 1383. It basically, it doesn't create a market. It puts a gun to the head of all the jurisdictions and forces us to procure product that we don't need, quite honestly. So that in itself troubles me greatly. Obviously, a solution that costs us no money and is local is more attractive. There's some uncertainty there. It concerns me. And I think the other element of option 2 that troubles me is similar to Matthew. It's, we don't have a biomass facility here to take our material. And so we'll be buying material in Southern California to go into a biomass facility. And then we get to simply dispose of an equal amount here, bury it, do whatever we want. That doesn't feel right. That's a shell game, as far as I'm concerned. If we're really wanting to impact this, we need to find a way to take those materials and distribute them, even if it's us putting them in our medians and everything else. If that's what has to happen, that local solution, that even if it's not zero, is probably more low cost and feels a little more honest to me, quite frankly. So I would, at this point, with the information we have, I would steer staff towards option 1. I think that carbon credits are. So is there a big red button that will buzz so I can say what I want to say about carbon credits? Anyway, so staff is looking for direction tonight, correct? Is anybody else to a point where they can share their preference, at least, for staff to continue to explore, or do we want to?
Well, obviously, no cost is better, as long as we can remain compliant. That's my only concern. Like, I totally get what you're saying, but I just want to make sure that we don't get ourselves in trouble and then it ends up costing us a lot more instead of having a balance of both options. So, and I'm not like married to it. I'm not pushing it. I'm just I just thought it was, I appreciate all the work that Kirsten and Pioneer have done to do this. I just want to make sure that because she is right that, they're going to be a little lenient with the first year, but then moving forward, it could bite us if we're not careful. So whatever.
Problem. But if Greenleaf is a viable, well, potentially viable, you have to make, didn't include them tonight, right? This again, okay. So that's, they're asking for direction.
So that,
but
correct me if I'm wrong. Assuming that deadline, that forecloses the current negotiated price. It does not prevent us from renegotiating at a future date at a different cost structure, perhaps. We're
Yes,
not-
that's
it's not
correct.
One and done.
My understanding is that, that there is an unlimited amount of these biomass credits to purchase. So in essence, it's a limited quantity, and at some point, they might sell all of them. That is
Or
part
they
of the
might not.
risk. But I don't know if Kirsten has those numbers, how many biomass credits are there in total with Greenleaf? Are they expanding their facility? What does the future look like? And with that biomass, I mean, it's not a no-risk solution either. Apparently, it sounds like tonight they had some concerns of EPA. Now maybe they're going away, but that isn't a no-risk option either. And it's not a local option.
Well, no, it's not a no risk option, but neither is option 1 a no risk option either.
Exactly.
And to be quite honest with you, I'm all about local solutions too, but this law is horrible and we just need to be compliant, right? So, I mean, I'm more interested in being compliant than being completely local. So that's my feeling about it, but I'm willing to go along with whatever you guys think is best. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not necessarily pushing for it. I just want to make sure that we make the right decision here and then, not miss a window, because that was the whole thing of Greenleaf, is that it's kind of like the ground floor thing, right? It's like get in on it while it's available. And if we keep waiting, then yeah, we might pay more and then they might say, well, the door's closed. So just looking at all the options.
is the 122,000 the cost 50/50? No, is that the full?
Yes, that's for 50% of the attributes.
That's why we're here, for you to tell us what you think. I think that, you know, if you're really that concerned about risk, you can go with the third option, which hedges it a bit. It's, I don't, can you remind me, Angela, what the cost out of pocket on that one was?
That's the 122,000
Oh, that's the third-
over
third option?
3 years.
Okay. There's been a lot of discussion in the city manager's world about the reality of what we think the real stick is going to be. No one knows. A lot of people have talked about it. Depends on who you talk to at Cal Recycle. I can tell you that there are communities that are much smaller and much more, you know, constrained areas. They're going to have a really, really tough time with this. And I tend to doubt that Cal Recycle is going to bankrupt the city because they're having trouble sourcing their compost. But with that said, you know, the goal is compliance as always. So I think that if our partners very locally are looking to try to really address this, you know, locally, then we need to give it a shot. And at least for now, we could say it's the most fiscally prudent way to address it. And maybe we're wrong and we have to rethink it. It's that's what we got.
That's where I am as well. We good? Bill? Dan? There you go.
Okay, option one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. I'm so sorry we made you wait through the whole meeting. Yes.
She's telling the family I'm on my
Yes,
way.
yes, exactly.
All right, let's see if we can move through the rest of this swiftly. City managers report.
Sorry.
He doesn't know that he's the city manager. He's tired.
Sorry, I'm really tired. Yeah.
You've been away for 2 weeks.
No reports.
All right.
Except for please come Saturday to our open house at the airport. It's gonna be great. If flyover is at 10 o'clock with the Air Force, so at least be there for that. And air balloons rides at 6:30.
Richard, do you want to take the city manager's time and do a quick 30-second commercial? 1 minute?
Okay, well, 6 months ago, I said we're going to have perfect weather. We're going to have perfect weather. 4 months ago, I said we're going to have a great program. We're going to have a great program. So it's going to be excellent for families. Start at 6:30 with a hot air balloon rise. We're going to have 70 planes coming in, lots of cars out there, probably 50 cars. Lots of people, lots of food trucks, lots of vendors. It's going to be a great time for the whole family. Lots of good education for the youngsters also. So come on out.
So did I hear you correctly? Did you say a hot air balloon rise?
Yes.
So there are multiple hot air balloons
At about
beside the.
at 6:30 to 7 o'clock, there's going to be 5 balloons that are going to be launching up and doing the balloon thing, going away.
Right.
And then we're going to have a tethered balloon.
That's what I
for
wanted to
going
get
up and
to.
down.
Yep.
Yes.
So those who want a ride, the tethered balloon is
Yes.
available.
Yeah, but early in the morning, starting about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and there's a time limit on that. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Council initiated business.
You can go first.
Dan?
Have one.
I'd like, if I have consensus, to ask staff to bring back council, ethics. Yeah.
Code of
Code
conduct.
of conduct, yeah.
Code of conduct. So that we can look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. We discussed it briefly at our strategic retreat. I think it's a very good idea and timely. Anyone else?
Yeah, one, go ahead.
No, are we good with that?
Oh,
first of
yes,
all?
yes. Oh, 100%. Yes.
Good. Oh, so a council code of conduct. Basically, the rules of behavior and establishing appropriate conduct during meetings and otherwise. No. No, and this will actually be fleshed out. We'll, in all likelihood, hire a facilitator who will come in and we'll all input into that and flesh out what this looks like. No. This has to do with us, not with the public. No.
No, it's not about speaking up. It's about the conduct while you're speaking up.
All right. Holly. you
Yeah, I
have
just have one. I don't know if Fran is still listening. She's probably not, but in regards to the person who's currently incarcerated, the violent sexual predator that they are thinking about releasing in Placer County. I did miss the press conference on Monday because I was working. But I did ask, I sent an email to Sean and Gwen that Lincoln send a letter in opposition to that. And I think Gwen just sent me a response that it's on the next, it'll be on the next agenda. So if the council is in agreement that we can send that.
So-
Yes.
So there's a deadline of the 25th to get that in before the court date.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Okay. So okay, clarification.
So what I will tell you is
Yes.
that myself, the mayor of Roseville and the mayor of Rockland all got together.
Yeah.
And signed the petition. So
Okay.
that has gone to the DA's office with our mayor's titles attached to it and the city's position.
Okay, that's good. Because I'm glad you did that because I wanted to do one, from the whole council and from the city if council's in agreement with that. Because I think we need to be, I think that the mayor's is great, but I think we need to be united in that. Because Roseville sent a letter, I think Rockland has as well. And so. So just because you were on Zoom that somebody wasn't physically there from Lincoln doesn't mean that we're not paying
No,
attention and
very
we're
much
not.
there.
Yeah, we're very much there. And that's all I have.
Council committee reports. I'll start on my left.
I don't think other than our EDC meeting, I don't think I've had one yet. So there's coming up here soon. So yeah.
Not a whole lot to bring up about the flood committees.
Pretty short. Whoop. Any,
No floods.
no floods?
Yeah.
So you're successful.
Yes.
How are the MAC meetings going? Pretty good.
That's all right. We'll do it next time. All right. So I did have a SACOG Board of Directors meeting that was held up in Marysville. I was unable to attend. I did not direct that to my alternate because the entire agenda was essentially exploring Marysville and how they're dealing with what they're calling disinvested communities. And Marysville's challenges are much different than ours. And my perspective, that conversation was not the role of SACOG. SACOG is primarily a transportation planning agency. And so I was not able to attend, but I also not pass that on to you. Perhaps I should have. I've got PCTPA tomorrow, so I'll report out on that as well. Information items. Anyone have an information item for us tonight? None. We have reached adjournment, so we are adjourned. Thank you all very
Staff.
much.
Darla, whole meeting.